The time being 5 p.m. on the Wednesday, 21st of April. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, and note that we are still working to minimize the risk of exposure to or potential spread of COVID-19. Comments can be submitted for public meetings and hearings online. And most commissioners, actually all commissioners, will call into the meeting, and it is viewable via live webcast and television options. Video is also posted to the website, usually 2 days after the meeting. I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne. Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Hassan.
Here.
Commissioner Severson.
Present.
Commissioner Meyer.
Here.
Commissioner French.
Here.
Commissioner Forney.
Here.
Vice President Vita.
Present.
President Cogill.
Here.
You have a quorum.
I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second to approve the agenda. I should note that we're asking for the recreation item 2021-186 to be brought up from committee to full board tonight, which was noticed to the public. So without any further objection, I will ask the secretary to please take the roll on approving the agenda with the recreation item coming up to the full board tonight.
Commissioner Bourne. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan.
Aye.
Commissioner Severson.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner French. Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes and 1 absent.
That carries. I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, April the 7th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second to approve the minutes from Wednesday, April the 7th. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing any discussion. I'll ask the secretary to take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan.
Same.
Commissioner Severson.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner French. Commissioner French.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 1 absent, and 1 abstain.
That carries. I'll ask now our superintendent to kick us off with a report of officers and let us know what's going on around the system.
Right. Thank you, President Cogill and commissioners. It's great to see everybody. We'll start off with ice arenas. Comcast has equipped Bright Ice Garden and Northeast Ice Arena with Wi-Fi connected lift zones to improve internet access at the sites for youth. So another great addition to our expansion of Wi-Fi. So we're very excited about that. Aquatics continues to host lifeguard classes weekly at Phillips Aquatic Center, PAC. Staff is splitting their time between recruiting interviews and hiring for summer of 2021 with coaching the junior swim club. Although staffing levels remain low, we have made an intentional focus on drowning prevention and facility operations. Aquatics is proud to be hosting 1,156 available registration spots for summer swim lessons at our key hubs of Lupient, North Commons, Weber, NSP Natural Swimming Pool, Nokomis, and Worth. We hope to reach as many youth as possible to bring water safety and drowning prevention to the surface for summer 2021. Adult athletics. Adult sports leagues are kicking off this week and next. Registration has been strong, and we look forward to an exciting spring on the fields, rinks, and courts. Golf. Despite uneven weather over the past few weeks, golf continues to perform well, and demand is high. We are currently at almost 17,000 rounds, a number we did not hit until mid-May of 2020. So golf is continuing to do really well. Youth sports. We are working to recruit youth and generate interest in youth baseball and softball for this upcoming season. Staff introduced the sports of quickball to a group of kids at Powderhorn Park. Quickball is a fun, fast-paced game of baseball or softball and uses foam balls with a plastic bat. Players run the bases after one swing, regardless if they hit the ball or not. The game teaches life skills such as communication, teamwork, and sportsmanship. Each participant received a baseball cap and a baseball card for attending. There was an attachment or a slide with this one visual, but I'm not sure, I don't see it up there, so my apologies. Rec Plus. What a wonderful week at Weber Park. The weather has been perfect for dirt, worms, and other little soil critters. Youth explored and learned a lot about soil layers and the importance of living soil to the earth, including how important it is to us. Here are the kids doing a mud painting. Recreation centers, Northeast Park. 50 children and families participated in the Grab and Go Spring Extravaganza at Northeast Park. Children were greeted by the Easter Bunny, and each child was able to choose a bag full of goodies to celebrate spring. Supplies included 3 art projects, candy and prizes, coloring sheets, and a scavenger hunt to do in the backyard. In addition, each family was given a bag of supplies to make homemade treats. Stewart, NPRB staff, Ron Horwath, a gifted woodworker, came to Stewart Park and built a garden trellis with the kids. The kids had a ball and are excited for the next step, planting. Lindale Farmstead. 170 people participated in the Bunny Trail event at Lindale Farmstead. The trail was a scavenger hunt through the park to find laminated pictures of eggs and bunnies. On each picture was a stamp corresponding to stamps on participants' passports. Once the passports were full, they returned them to the park for a treat bag. I saw these guys out there, it was really cool. Powderhorn, we had a very successful spring break play camp. 11 kids had a blast making slab houses and other items that they designed and glazed. They'll pick up their fired projects to take home soon. Nokomis held a ballet and creative movement recital for parents, a big night for both the dancers and their parents. Martin Luther King Jr. Park. Children ran off steam and enjoyed the wide open spaces of the gym during the park parent playtime. Creekview, the Twin Cities Masquerade dance team from Creekview held a dress rehearsal in the preparation for their competition. There are 30 young ladies registered and they practice twice a week in the gym. Forestry New started spring tree planting on April 7th and have already installed over 2,500 trees. Since most are bare root trees, they are the first to be planted. By improving the use of our computerized tree inventory, we have seen greater efficiency when allocating trees to service areas. Our goal is to finish planting all 8,000 trees by Memorial Day. Excellent, excellent work. Environmental management. The 2021 community garden season has officially started. 266 individuals have applied for plots in NPRB community gardens. 130 applicants were awarded garden space, with priority given to Minneapolis residents without land access outside the parks and who plan to grow food. 17 people applied to volunteer at the community garden as community garden leads. 8 sites are currently available for community use. In the north, we have Lovell Square and Sumner Field. In the east of the river, we have Dickman and Towerside. Downtown, we have Franklin Steele and Loring. And on the south, we have Powderhorn and Sibley. Plans for the 2021 garden installations at PV Park and the Seapro site are in the works. Very excited to see this. What a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and project. So very happy to see that. Asset management, maintenance and operations. Our spring readiness continues in our maintenance and operations department. We currently have 35 buoys out of 380 installed. We are expecting to have all buoys filled at Medeamakoska, Lake Harriet, and Lake Nokomis installed and available to boaters on May 1st, weather dependent. Pictured below are staff Tim Burrell and Gail Eckern installing buoys at Medeamakoska. NBRB teams have been working on repairing the docks 32nd Street and at Medeamakoska. The corner post is the image below, was sheared off by ice last winter. The installation was done in-house by our welder, Kenny. The installation took place over the winter months while the lake was frozen, thus saving money and renting a crane and rigging. Parts and guidance came from MinCorp. Great job on that. Several playgrounds in our park system are getting a facelift and replacement on new wood chips. Pictured below is Bryant Square after the wood chips update. Other parks that will be receiving new wood chips are Franklin Steele, Chigorsky, Luxton, Wyndham Northeast, Dickman, Highview, Powderhorn West, Nokomis Neighborhood, Glengale, Bethune, Stevens Squares, Fuller, and MLK. Trade shop. The cement shop reconstructed the Basset Creek Bridge after a car accident damaged the stone railing. More restoration work and improvements are being considered for this bridge. They did a great job. It looks really good. Customer service. The customer service events team is partnering with the Minnesota Renewable Now to show a movie on Earth Day, Thursday, April 22nd. The movie being shown at Theodore Golf Course parking lot is an inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power. The 2021 Minneapolis Earth Day event is moving to do a do-it-yourself or DIY format. It's free to participate, and residents are encouraged to get involved in the 2021 Earth Day event by volunteering to help pick up trash in parks, neighborhoods, and watersheds. No registration needed, just follow these easy steps. Your DIY Earth Day cleanup. Number 1, use a trash bag from home or pick up bags and gloves at one of our 26 participating Earth Day sites on April 24th from 9:30 a.m. to noon. Number 2, head to a nearby park or trail and pick up trash you see while getting fresh air and, of course, exercise. Number 3, participate social distancing and other current COVID-19 guidelines. Learn more at, of course, www.minneapolisparks.org/coronavirus COVID-19 information. Number 4, share pictures of your trash haul on our Facebook page at MPLS Earth Day using the hashtag MPLS DIY Earth Day. The event team is excited about the positive feedback regarding the 2021 event, with many community site coordinators stepping up to help distribute supplies. In addition, a robust social media campaign is underway throughout the month of April that has boosted online engagement by more than 17% and partnered with the City of Minneapolis and Tree Trust. Loring Park Concept Plan for Neighborhood Playground. The Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, NPRB, has developed a concept plan for new equipment and surfacing of the Loring Park Playground. The concept plan is based on community input from a survey last winter and neighborhood meetings and a pop-up park event last year. Construction of the new playground is planned for this fall. All community members are encouraged to review the concept plan and give feedback through an online survey. NPRB planning staff use the feedback to finalize the concept plan. And of course, there you see the concept. Benema-Costco Refectory Rebuild. Staff will be releasing the vision guideline principles and preferred concept for the new pavilion and site improvements at Benema-Costco. At the May 5th planning meeting, planning committee meeting, staff will present the concept and hold a public hearing at 6:30 p.m. Those interested in reviewing the preferred concept will find it posted at minneapolis.org/BMS Rebuild. That's all one word, BMS Rebuild. Van Cleef Park project improvements. Concept plans for Van Cleef playground and lighting improvements are now available. The concept plan includes 3 options for updates to the park's play area for 5 to 12-year-olds and 2 to 5-year-olds, and 1 option that adds 13-year-old and up fitness equipment. Lighting improvements along the park's southwest path is also included. Community members are encouraged to view the concept plan and then share their feedback. The proposed concept plan can be viewed at the project webpage. On the NPRB webpage under Park Care and Improvements, Park Projects, Current Projects, and Van Cleef Park. An online survey is available until April 29th, or feel free to share with NPRB project managers at any time. The next section I want to quickly go through and is a grant donation program collaboration first quarter update. My apology, last time we were asked quickly to present something and I kind of rambled through, but I want to give a quick update to this board on a quarterly basis. And this would be my quick update on the grants donation and program collaboration work. The first thing which you're aware of is the Youth Prize. We were awarded $259,000 for 2021 through 2023 for expanding reach and effectiveness of existing culturally relevant street outreach efforts, adding outreach hours, connecting youth to resources, workforce training and employment, and engaging youth in developing their own solutions to address violent crime. Trainings provided by Youth Prize, Mentor Minnesota, and Search Institute. We also put a grant in for the Minnesota Department of Human Resources, Homeless Assistance, submitted proposals for $174,000, almost $175,000 for funding for outreach encampments in 2021 and 2022. This work is strictly for those 2 years to support Street Reach for 6 Street Reach folks that they can focus on any issues arising in encampments. That way our other Street Reach teams that are more focused on youth can do that work around youth. So this expands that work and gives us hopefully those dollars so that that Street Reach team can provide services and outreach to any encampments or tents that do appear in our park system. Strictly again for Street Reach. People for Parks. We submitted a proposal for Somali traditional games for $10,000. The awards will be announced in early June. Also for People for Parks, we submitted a proposal for Rec Plus swimming lessons for Harrison and Weber for $6,030. Awards will be announced in early June. We also, AmeriCorps, we awarded AmeriCorps members to work. We were awarded AmeriCorps members to work with pop-up parks for outreach to teens from June 7th to August 14th, 2021. The members will receive $3,750 stipend and a $1,311 education award from AmeriCorps. NPR receives invaluable full-time help for 10 weeks this summer. So very excited about that. We just got that awarded and great work around that. We're also looking, Heidi's also working on created a database for the Minnesota Top Foundations and Corporate Giving Program. That is ongoing. We also, the work that is being done by our grants and donations person is drafted guidelines for scholarship requirements. And that is the Recreation Division is reviewing and editing and approving those guidelines that were created. Working with the campaign committee, working with program innovations and public relations staff to prepare and launch an active net for donations, which will support our scholarship funding. So very excited about those two pieces coming together, and it's great work around that. Program collaboration, real quick update. Comcast lift zones, working with Comcast staff and ITS for the installation of lift zones, enhanced Wi-Fi at 42 recreation centers and other NPRB facilities. Also developed the standards for programming for lift zones. Heidi is also working with the Community Connections and Work Plan for the Youth Prize Funding, Mentoring Program, Youth Advisory Council, and data collections and evaluation. Also, the YMAP funding, working with staff on program proposal reviews, data collection, evaluation, and reporting. The last slide before I turn it to Director Wiseman is the Walt Dietzert Recreation Innovation Fund Program Summary. 62 plus recreation innovation programs reviewed and approved. Also submitted through Pandemic Program Committee for safety review and funded to date more than $337,663 for spring, summer, and fall programs. Also, she created a program proposal working with ITS and program innovations to put into digital format and to create digital reporting evaluation summary. So that's a quick update on the grants work that Heidi Hope has been doing. And I wanted to update the board, and we'll update the board quarterly on the work that's being done by her work. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Director Wiseman for a financial update on the coronavirus and the pandemic COVID-19. Director Wiseman.
Thank you. Good evening, President Cogill and commissioners. I'm going to provide us with our first financial update of 2021. Next slide, please. For our general fund, at this point, what we are projecting for year end is basically what we have budgeted. So our experience last year taught us that our property tax levels should probably come in as budgeted. So we're showing that. Also with local government aid, projections coming out of the state are favorable. And we project that again this year, we will receive 100% of our local government aid. So the COVID impact, as we all know, is really in the fees, fines, and other revenue. We are currently showing the $3 million impact to those fees, fines, and other revenues. We will need to monitor that closely throughout the year. And that is a dollar amount that would be adjusted downward if we feel we need to. Just to remind you that in 2020, we received $6.4 million for fees, fines, and other revenue, and we're currently projecting our year end for 2021 to be higher at $8.4 million. So again, we will need to watch that. We will also report out any COVID relief as it becomes available and is recorded. We do know we are going to start receiving some COVID relief dollars from the state of Minnesota for our Rec Plus sites as we did last year. On the expense side, you'll see that we are 20% expended this year. Last year at this time, we were 22% expended. So we're in alignment with our expenditures. We have paid off the Michael P. Schmidt building mortgage, and we paid off the internal loan for the Weber natural filtration pool. So those two items, the board budgeted for utilizing general fund excess fund balance to pay those off. So those have happened. We are showing that our revenue less expenses is about 1.3 million, and that is due to using the general fund excess fund balance for those two payments that I just mentioned. Next slide, please. So our available fund balance as we ended 2020 is a significant dollar, or our fund balance to start with is $9 million. We have our fund balance requirement of 5%. We have our prior year excess fund balance allocations, and then we have the $2.8 million of excess fund balance allocations that this board approved in February. So that leaves an available fund balance of $1.3 million going forward. Next slide, please. In our enterprise fund, you can see that golf did open up in March, and so we are reflecting golf rounds through the end of March, which we weren't able to open last year. So golf revenues are ahead of where we were last year, and we will continue to watch that. Next slide, please. In the other, for use and events permitting, you can see the impacts of COVID, where we have a smaller revenue generation in the first quarter this year compared to last year. You'll also see that we have lower expenses as we have held positions vacant due to COVID in that area. And then you'll see parking, our revenues are almost the same amount as what we generated last year at this time. Next slide, please. For ice arenas, we have a greater amount of revenue this year than we had last year. So that's a positive sign for our enterprise fund as well. Revenues for the sculpture garden are up just slightly. And again, in our budget for the enterprise fund, we budgeted the COVID impacts as a lump sum, and we are showing $1 million potential use of enterprise fund reserves due to COVID. Next slide, please.
Director Wiseman, I might pause you there as the time is about 5:30.
Okay.
That's okay. And we can return to this after open time. The time being just about 5:30 p.m. It is open time. We have 5 individuals signed up to address the board. Open time is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any topic they wish. It's the opportunity for the board to listen, and we allow for individuals to speak on any topic. We just ask that you refrain from using any discriminatory or harassing language, and refrain from discussing any pending personnel matters. So with that, I will ask our tech team if we have our first speaker on the line. That's Laura Velasquez.
Yes, and they are online now.
Very good. Laura, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great, Laura.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and you have 1 minute to address the board, and you may begin now.
Thank you. Thank you for comments. So I just wanted to bring up on April 10th, my partner and I were at Minnehaha Falls doing frisbee golf. Our dog became off leash, and because we were playing with her, she's a puppy, and 3 park patrol came up with, so a total of 6 individuals, park patrol, were there and asked him to identify himself, and it was very symbolic of the things that are going on here and our need to address equity within policing. And I think the Minneapolis Parks Board has a responsibility to address this in their equity action plan, which I examined prior to this. And if we want true equity in access to parks, it's essential that people are not discriminated against in their attending and in violations or any sort of matter within the park system and within policing of those park systems. So I think this is something that is a much larger issue, but I do think this should be addressed in the equity action plan that the Parks Board created.
Thank you very much, Laura, for your testimony. Our next speaker is Thomas Neary. Do we have Thomas on the line?
Yes, we have them online now.
Fantastic.
Hi,
Thomas,
can you hear me?
yes, Thomas, we can hear you. You may go ahead. You have 1 minute to address the board.
Perfect. Board of Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Thomas Neary, and I live in Como, adjacent to the University of Minnesota, where I am a student. And throughout the last 3 months, I've been engaged in a student project with a focus on 2 issues that afflict Minneapolis's urban environment: urban heat island effect and runoff pollution. So with these issues in mind, I believe that the board should consider adding action items to the comprehensive plan to address them. Specifically, this can be accomplished by focusing on the implementation of green infrastructure around parking lots. Studies have shown that parking lots are notorious for directing runoff pollutants into local waterways and heating up the area around them. So our proposal calls for about a 40% tree cover mandate over parking lots, which is pretty self-explanatory. And this, combined with increased non-automobile accessibility to park areas, can improve the issues of urban heat island effect and runoff pollution in Minneapolis over time. So with that, thank you for your time, and I hope that you guys consider this proposal.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Thomas. And if you have questions of who you'd want to submit any items to, you can follow up with Emily Rousseau, who can connect with you with any individuals who want to share any information that you have to circulate. Our next speaker is Zach Patterson. Is Zach?
Yep, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Zach, you have 1 minute to address the board. You can go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Well, Board of Commissioners, again, thank you for letting me speak to you this evening. My name is Zach Peterson, and like Thomas, I'm also a student at the University of Minnesota. I mostly want to reiterate his points about our thoughts on the comprehensive plan. As I'm sure you all know, our cities are getting warmer due to climate change, and as our parks act as our green spaces to cool down our urban heat island, I believe it also makes sense that our parks parking lots should also help to cool down our city. That's mainly why we want to see this 48% minimum tree cover as a goal to work towards in the comprehensive plan. And it's 40% because new studies out of Madison, Wisconsin, show that impervious surfaces like parking lots need at least 40% tree cover to really reduce their impact on urban heat island. Over the course of this semester, basically, our group has really been committed to the addition of the school. We've talked to Commissioner Mawr, Cliff Swenson, Madeline Hudek, basically asking as many people as we can to see the effectiveness of this. We know that cost is usually prohibitive when it comes to achieving goals and plans, but we would like to at least see the addition so that when the board has funds, it can work towards this percentage. So yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for this comment.
Thank you, Zach, for your testimony. Our next speaker is Diane Grieve. Is Diane on the line?
Yes, we have them on now.
Very good. Diane, you have 1 minute to address the board. You can go ahead now.
Thank you. I am Diane Grieve, the president of the Danabo Board, which is doing business as Danish American Center at 3030 West River Parkway. We would like to have Resolution 2020-167 returned to your agenda that read, requesting an encroachment permit for use of 15 square feet of land in front of 3030 West River Parkway. I remind you that 2/3 of the lawn in front of our building is park land. Were we to move the sign onto our land, it would be hard to read and could create a safety hazard for those passing by. You postponed or tabled this back in April of 2020. We are understanding that encroachments are being permitted on Lake of the Isles and would request that our encroachment permit for 15 square feet in Resolution 2020-167 be replaced and back on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, for your comments, and we will have staff follow up with you regarding this request. Our next speaker, I think our final speaker for open time is Tony Kelly. Do we have Tony on the line?
Yes, they are on now.
Great. Tony, are you there?
Yep.
Great. Tony, you have 1 minute to address the board. You can go ahead now.
All right. Thank you very much, President Cogill and members of the board. My name is Tony Kelly. I'm the business manager of Laborers Local 363 here in Minneapolis, representing a great deal of Park Board employees. I'm also the chair of the Minneapolis Board of Business Agents and also the labor chair of the Labor Management Committee at the Park Board. It's with a good deal of anxiety that I read about Resolution 2021-194. It establishes a link between the Park Board and Green Minneapolis to develop a carbon offset program. It sounds promising, but I've seen public-private partnerships come and go before, and my experience with them, both as a former Parks employee and as a current labor leader, hasn't always been positive. What sounds like an amazing value proposition at the outset can quickly devolve into some serious cleanup activity midstream, and it's always the public agency that ends up holding the bag at the end because of bad assumptions or analyses that weren't closely scrutinized at the front end. Too frequently, labor standards and economic access to the middle class become eroded. The labor value here is for the Park Board to establish its own capacity, use the tools within its own toolbox to expand the tree levy, for example, and use any other means at its disposal to expand its own capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for your testimony. That concludes our speakers for open time this evening. And I will return to Director Wiseman's financial report update. So Director Wiseman, back to you.
Thank you. So we were in the enterprise fund. And so all of the areas of the enterprise fund create our net income, and we are projecting our net income for 2021 to be just under $2 million. That net income then is used for improvements, our debt service payments, both for pension, MRF pensions, and debt service. And so you will see that at this point, we are projecting a $1.4 million negative balance, which would correlate to the use of reserves. On this slide, I do not show the reserve balance of the enterprise fund yet, as it is currently being reviewed and audited by the auditors. As soon as we have the final figure for our fund balance, I will share that with the board. Next slide, please. So now I'm just going to quickly do an encampment financial update. Next slide. I wanted to circle back with the board because I had not provided a year-end snapshot of the encampment financials. So this gives us a report through December 31st. We received $332,000 from the state in support for our expenses. We have applied all expenses that were eligible for this funding. For the easement amount, we utilized almost $80,000 of that, which leaves $14,800 remaining. And then all other expenditures were funded through our regular general fund budget. Next slide, please. So moving into 2021, we have Minnesota state funding that we received in advance for this year. So we received $41,000. That money is available for expenses that are incurred between January through June of this year. At this point, as of March 31st, we have accrued expenses just under $4,000, as there was the Minnehaha Falls encampment that we were providing services for yet in January. I have carried over the $14,000 easement amount balance, so that's available for 2021. And then this board, through their adoption of the general fund excess fund balance resolution, allocated an additional $25,000. So those are the dollar amounts that are available. We do have general fund expenses that we are incurring. That's both for the community connections and community connection department, and then also legal bills associated with the encampments. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wiseman. Looking for questions from commissioners. I think I had a couple of hands raised. Commissioner Musich, did you still have a question?
I do. Thank you very much, President Cogill, for allowing me to speak. Earlier it was mentioned that we're offering weekly lifeguard trainings, but the ones that we have available are full, and there aren't any scheduled out beyond the last weekend in April. So I'm wondering if we'll be adding additional training opportunities for youth to sign up to become lifeguards.
President Cogill, Commissioner Musich, yes, we will continue to offer trainings until we get the number of lifeguards that we need to sustain us through the whole season.
Okay, when do we anticipate adding additional sessions? Because I'd love to include this in my newsletter, but I don't want to send people somewhere to something that doesn't exist yet.
Unfortunately, I am not prepared to answer that tonight, but I certainly can get it to you before we finish this meeting.
Lovely, thank you. That was the only question I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Severson.
Thank you, President Cogill. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Got a few questions about golf and the enterprise fund. If Julie could help me understand a few things or just clarify it for the general public. What were the 2020 revenues for golf? Hello? Hello?
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I'm just
Sometimes
trying to
with
turn
technology,
myself back on.
No, good.
So the revenues in golf for 2020 were 7.3 million.
And what's the projections for 2021?
Right now, we're projecting 6.6 million.
Why is that?
Because as I have described before, we project conservatively, as especially with golf, as it is directly related to weather. So we've started off early because we had an early spring. It's been pretty rainy. So as we move more into the season, then we will up those projections if we feel that the number of rounds and the weather, the playable days are showing that.
Okay. It's true that we lost 9 holes at Columbia, but we still started a month early, and we had the highest rounds that we've had in years. I'm just concerned that these projections might mislead the general public with some of the board members and how some may feel about golf. It seems like golf is doing really well, in my earnest opinion. What will happen to the golf surplus if it materializes this year?
So again, we have the enterprise fund is the enterprise fund as a whole. And so we will have other areas of the enterprise fund that potentially will lose or have a negative net income this year. So the areas that have a positive net income help offset the areas that have a negative net income. And then Jennifer, if you can go to the last slide for the enterprise fund, please. Yep, this one. And it also, again, whatever the net income is, we have some significant things that we are funding already this year. We've got $1.9 million in improvements. And part of that is the Bidet Makaska, and there's other improvements built in there. We have our increase to the debt service amount for parade. So anything that, so right now we're projecting that we might actually use fund reserves rather than add to fund reserves.
So golf seems like it's the thing that just keeps on giving, and we're not investing. Doesn't seem like we're investing a lot of resources into it, particularly with the surpluses, but it appears that we're getting a lot out of it to support other programs. Is it fair to say, without golf doing as well as it is, that we would be hurting? Well, would the enterprise fund even exist, or would it be functional?
Commissioner Severson, President Colgill, the enterprise, I guess I can't answer that. There are years when golf loses money, and there are years when golf rate has a positive net income. When you're talking about the sustainability of the fund as a whole, it's all of its parts, not any, it's not any one of its parts.
But as of now, in the past couple of years, golf is the one that is perhaps saving the enterprise fund from being in the negative.
It was one of the reasons why we weren't in the negative last year. We also deferred capital improvements last year, and this year it remains to be seen what happens by the end of this year.
All right. One last question. Why did the debt service go up from $700,000 to $1.3 million?
That is the restructuring of the parade debt. So for our debt service, when we took on the parade debt, we also had the Neiman debt. And so it was the restructuring. Now that the Neiman debt has fallen off, we are now paying more towards our debt service on the parade site for the parade improvements.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Colgill. Just for clarification, this is not just on Director Wiseman's presentation. This is to the superintendent's entire report. Is this the appropriate time to ask questions on the entire report?
Yes, you may go ahead and address the superintendent.
Thank you. So I do have I saw Director Wiseman turn her camera off, but I have some questions for this part of the presentation and for the superintendent, but I'll start with Director Wiseman and work backwards. The enterprise fund, if I'm reading those two charts correctly, all of enterprise had its collective expenses actual last year and budgeted this year of about 8.7 million. Is that the entire enterprise fund? That's its actual expense last year and budgeted this year? You're muted, Julie.
President Colgill and Commissioner Bourne, the 2021 approved budget for the enterprise fund as a whole is shows $12.1 million for expenses.
That's in the budget, but so what is this cell that says 8.76 million here under 2021 current budget?
That's the operating expenses. Then you have the non-operating expenses. So the total budget is.
And that's the capital improvements that were delayed last year. Got it.
Correct.
So for just talking about operating, so the entire enterprise fund, every function in the enterprise fund, actual last year, budget this year, 8.7.
Correct.
Going back to, but revenues are 11.3 last year. We're budgeting to, so it sounds like the entire fund, 8.7 million is across the entire fund for expenses, but it looks like golf has between 6 to a conservative estimate 6. Last year's actuals were 7 point almost 4. So it looks like operation, the revenues from golf are covering virtually the entire enterprise fund for operating last year and then probably this year too.
So, I mean, that's correct. You got $7 million of revenue and you got $6 million of expenses. So golf is the largest unit within the enterprise fund.
Perfect. Oh, okay. Then the debt service is more of just a comment, and I think I understand how that works. But I know that we have. So we're shifting more debt service out of the general fund into enterprise. Is that right? From the from parade.
President Cogill and Commissioner Bourne, the parade debt is in the enterprise fund because the parade ice garden is an enterprise function. And so the restructuring of that debt is an enterprise fund expense.
Okay. I'll ask you offline because I know you and I butted heads a little bit a few years ago over the Neiman restructuring, but so I just want to make sure I understand that before before I go any further on that. So thank you, Director Wiseman. My other questions are for Superintendent Bangora, and I'll just say them all three really briefly, and then you can respond to them in whichever order. Is there an update on the bell and wheel from the Minneapolis? Last week, I heard the grants update that you just gave, Superintendent. It seems like great work. At our last meeting, I asked if you could also provide the number of grants that we had received historically to date. And you said you would be able to provide that. And I got on the call late, so I'm not sure if that was presented, but it didn't look like it was. And then with parkway closures, I'm just wondering, has there been any effort since our last resolution to reach out to the Minneapolis Council, the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on people with disabilities? We had made some assertions that the resolution that we made was great for folks with accessibility issues, but there wasn't any reaching out to the constituency groups that represented them. So I'm just looking to see if staff have had any contact with that advisory committee yet.
Commissioner Bourne, President Cogill, or President Cogill, Commissioner Bourne. The Bell and Wheel, we're moving along very well with that. I've contacted, worked with Mr. Ward and Dr. Peterson. We have agreed upon a very structured way of that we would be working together to get the Bell and Wheel back over to the park board. We have a plan in place. We are now working through that with Mr. Ward and with Dr. Peterson. We're all in agreement. The Bell and Wheel will be coming back to the park board. We're now working on just the timing of it. With that, we have some things that we have to do for engineering around the mast that's at Minneapolis and the wheel being over at headquarters and where it'd be placed. So right now we're creating that document around the timing. Planning and Assistant Superintendent Michael Schroeder have been working diligently on putting together a plan to bring that forward. And so we are working through that. We also have a resolution that will be coming forward in agreement with the American Legion that Mr. Ward has very respectfully really approves the award, the resolution, along with, of course, Dr. Peterson, and recognition of the care that they did have for that particular, the wheel and the bell and the restoration of it. So we're moving along very well. It's just a matter of time now before we get that back in our possession. And again, we will update the board as that moves forward. But I want to stress and say again that the work has been done. They are in cooperation with both Mr. Ward and Dr. Peterson. And we are all in agreement, and they will be coming back to the park board. But again, we'll present that to the board as soon as we get everything ready to go forward. The grants, we will be presenting that information, Commissioner Bourne, that you asked for to be coming during our board retreat. We are working with that. We did not forget that. My apologies for not bringing that up during the presentation with our first quarter presentation around the grants, donation, and program collaboration position. We will bring that forward to you, Commissioner Bourne, with the last 5 years that you requested. So we have not forgotten that. The staff is working on that. We will have that for you, and we will give that report to you during our board retreat, during the budget retreat. Parkway closures, I have not personally met with the Minneapolis Advisory Committee. I have not personally met with them. And that's something that I can do immediately. We do, again, when we look at parkway closures and the number or the distance of the closures around our parkway, we can be very, share the amount of parkways that we do have, but we also are very clear that if there's a concern around the particular one around Harriet and also around the Westward Road, I can reach out and have that conversation with the Minneapolis Advisory Committee. If Commissioner Bourne, if you could tell me who the contact would be, I would call them immediately tomorrow and have that conversation with them.
Thank you, Superintendent. I have a motion here while I've properly obtained the floor, but I do want to just say, Superintendent, I really appreciate you picking up the phone and having a conversation with Mr. Ward and Dr. Peterson, as opposed to just tweeting at them. And it sounds like diplomacy may have won the day here.
It has.
So while I have the floor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of considering the following resolution. The resolution is, be it resolved that all future temporary parkway closures be done with the advice and consultation of the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on People with Disabilities.
Second.
There is a motion to suspend the rules on the floor for the purposes of introducing a resolution. There has been a motion and a second to do so. Is there any discussion on suspending the rules?
I'm trying to raise my hand here.
Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Cogill. I just encourage.
Parliamentary inquiry, is this a debatable motion? I don't believe suspending the rules is.
Point of order, I've been recognized by the chair.
If it's not a debatable motion, I'm not sure what else needs to be said. We should probably take a vote on suspending the rules before we go into debate about the item.
Well, President Cogill, do you know if it's a debatable motion or not, or would you like to consult with counsel?
I believe it's not a debatable motion, but
well, you just recognize me for,
clarify.
okay, you just recognize me for the floor. So if it wasn't debatable, I guess I'm confused as to why I was recognized, but okay.
Thank you. I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll on suspending the rules.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
No.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
No.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
No.
Vice President Vita,
No.
President Cogill.
No.
You have 4 ayes, 5 nays.
That motion fails. Any other questions?
Very unfortunate. I'll leave the floor.
Are there any other questions for the superintendent regarding his report? I'm not seeing any. I will move on here with the agenda and ask for a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
That's resolution 2021-181 through resolution 2021-184. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There has been a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? I'm not seeing any discussion on the consent agenda. So I will ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French, Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
That carries. Turning it over here to our Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee Chair Vita.
I'd like to move resolution 2021-172, a resolution approving a 1-year contract effective April 22nd, 2021 with Primary Strategy Group in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for lobbyist services.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Bourne?
Thank you, President Cogill. This board spent quite a bit of, the organization has spent quite a bit of money over the years on $10,000 contracts to federal lobbyists with very little return. I think that was an initiative of Superintendent Miller, and there just weren't a whole lot of return to dollars. As I'm looking at the background materials for this, I'm not, like, the days of having something earmarked specifically for an organization like the Park Board are really over. Federal funds come in the form of grants that would then be applied for through an open and transparent process. On some of the legislative things, I'm wondering if we've had any conversations with Congresswoman Omar's office to see what her office could carry. This just really seems like we're taking a step to the bad old days of a federal lobbying contract that for years had proven to be ineffective. And so I'm certainly not going to be supporting this. I think we could do as much or better work with working with our IGR staff and working through Congresswoman Omar's office. I just don't see the need to expand our federal lobbying services on something that I don't see us getting a whole lot of traction on.
Thank you, Commissioner Bourne. Vice President Vito.
Thank you, President Cogill. I don't know the history of this before I got on the board, so could Council Rice possibly provide some additional information?
So go ahead.
Mr. President?
Yeah. You're welcome.
Just for context, Commissioner Bourne is right that under Superintendent Miller, we did have a presence at the federal level. I do think there were some results there on the Urban Park Initiative, perhaps not as much as was hoped. I do think, though, that given the American Jobs Plan that President Biden has proposed in as much as a $2.9 trillion infrastructure bill over a period of, I believe, 8 years, there's some merit in this proposal. And I do think, Commissioner Bourne, I concur with Commissioner Bourne about talking to Congresswoman Omar's office, but I believe that they are the Democrats in the House are contemplating bringing back earmarks of some form. And I mean, Ms. Gokemeyer might be able to address that. I believe the staff and the superintendent have had a plan for something at North Commons, perhaps, as meeting her criteria, as well as Cedar Riverside. So, and I would say the contract is pretty modest. I think under Superintendent Miller, it was a factor of maybe 4 times as large. So, for what it's worth, I think I think that we've seen a pretty significant change in spending at the federal level, at least the potential for something to happen.
May I respond?
Thank you. Commissioner Forney, I'm going to call on Commissioner Meyer, and then I can go over to you, get his hand raised here.
Yeah, I spoke against this in committee and just wanted to reiterate that. I agree with what Commissioner Bourne said.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Commissioner Forney? Oh, that was Pamela. My fault. Ms. Gokemeyer, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, President Cogill and Vice President Vito and commissioners. What Commissioner Bourne said is true in the past about earmarks, and that was a conversation that I had with the superintendent before the new administration about, specific funding for, the park board. But that has changed this year with the new administration, and the House Appropriations Chair, Rosa DeLauro, has opened up. They're not calling it earmarking, but that's in essence what it is, and has asked members or given members the opportunities to submit up to 10 projects for community funding. And we did speak with Representative Omar's office a few weeks ago to meet that deadline for submitting projects, and it had to be in her district, had to have community support, and we did talk to her and apply for possible funding for North Commons and Cedar Riverside Curry Park. The Senate is expected to follow suit in the near future with earmarking or community funding projects. So I think there's a unique opportunity right now at the federal level. In addition, we have the new administration, change in Senate leadership. I don't know how long that will endure. So it's kind of a unique opportunity up until the 2022 election cycle. And I would also say, I think the Biden administration has really had a focus and desire to implement projects with sustainable and equity lens. And I think that's not just lip service. I think they are truly wanting to do that. And I think that the park board, that our priorities are really well suited for that. And so, I mean, I think it would be a good opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gochmeyer. And for clarity, Ms. Gochmeyer, is the contract with the lobbyists is the same group that is representing the city of Minneapolis in similar efforts? Is that the same?
Yes, President Kogel and commissioners, yes, they are one of the federal lobbyists that the city is using. That's correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Bourne for the second time.
Thank you, President Kogel. I think I heard everything I needed to hear from Pamela and Brian to reaffirm my objection to this. I mean, it sounds like we had an opportunity with Congresswoman Omar's office, and we had an opportunity to submit some projects. Those are now submitted. I have trust in I have trust in our federal delegation that if we've had some one-on-one conversations with them, that they're going to move this, that they're going to move those on our behalf. And I just don't see, this is how contracts grow and get buried and never go away. Like, I know we're saying it's an interesting opportunity for 2 years. It's never going to go away. It's going to be budget after budget after budget. And frankly, I think between the relationships with our delegation and the skills that we now have in-house, Pamela, part of the justification for the creation and sustaining the position that that is currently there was the savings that we would have from not having a federal lobbyist. And now we're watching that creep back in. And part of that intergovernmental work plan was to strengthen the relationship with our federal delegation offices here so they know what to advocate for on our behalf. So I don't see how giving a lobbyist a $10,000 check out of multiple contracts that they're already going to have, and we're just going to get so little attention from them for $10,000. And there are billions of dollars at stake in under Biden's administration. Like, I just don't see where the payoff is on that. So again, I would ask my colleagues not to support this. I think we can find a better use for $10,000.
Thank you, Commissioner Bourne. Superintendent Van Gore, did you want to make a point?
Yeah, thank you, President Cogill. Just real briefly, I think Council Rice and Pamela has stated, I think, the reason why we had a deep discussion around this. I would not take dollars and expand it going forward in the future with this board's agreement. The $10,000 was already specifically put aside for this use. I am taking that $10,000 and addressing what I see to be a very important connection to the federal side, because Pamela's work is intergovernmental. She is doing the work across the organization. We are connected to our delegation. But this work is very specific to where we look at the Great Outdoors Act. We look at earmarks that are coming up, to have someone specifically focused on that to help and guide us in what we need to do on the local level with our delegation. I've been working with many different across the country. I sit on the CPA board, the City Parks Alliance board. I've been connecting with a lot of directors and people that are running major park systems across the country. This is not unusual, and this is what everybody is kind of moving towards in a small amount to see what they can do and how they can be at the table and leverage these things. This is not taken away from the work that we are currently doing, the great work that we are doing within our team that currently exists. Pamela and Brian and Frankie, they're doing great work, of course. This is just a way for us to make sure that we are connected to what is happening in the federal level, and in particular around earmarks and the billions of dollars that are coming forward, my colleagues in my roles across the country are doing small things to make sure they're connected. I sit with them and we talk through this. This is not unusual. We want to be at the table. We want to be able to be present when these things do come through on the federal level. It's not a lot of dollars, and it's $10,000 that was put aside for the specific role. So I want to assure the board that I would not do anything more than that, and I would always come to the board going forward to think that it would grow. It's not my intent. My intent is to be able to do something where you can focus our this particular federal lobbyists, so we can focus on those earmarks and find out what we can tap into, because we cannot be at all places at all times. But that's just, I want to state that, and I support this.
Thank you, Superintendent. You know, I too have had concerns. I'll just say, you know, I'm going to be voting yes for this, based upon a couple of things, mainly that I did have a conversation with Congresswoman Omar's office. I have also had conversations with Ms. Goldmeyer and with the superintendent. And it does seem like, especially because this group is connected also with the efforts that Minneapolis is doing itself, that the delegation can kind of get more bang for our buck with this, and we're in a unique year. We've already passed some pretty substantial legislation since the new administration came into power, and this is another opportunity with a pretty substantial potential infrastructure bill that I think warrants this. So with that, I'll ask the secretary to take the roll on the resolution.
Commissioner Bourne,
No.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
No.
Commissioner Meyer,
No.
Commissioner Hassan,
No.
Commissioner French,
No.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 4 ayes, 5 nays.
That does not carry. I'll turn it back over to Chair Vita.
Can we go back to 171? Okay, we're there. I'd like to move resolution 2020-171, a resolution approving the 2021 federal legislative agenda of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on the federal legislative agenda? Or questions? Seeing none, I'll just thank staff for working on this and putting this together. We, even without the contract, I think still are in a very unique potential situation for some substantial funding for our system. So appreciate the work that has gone into this, and hope for a good result. I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
That carries. Moving on to Planning Committee, Chair Meyer.
I move resolution 2021-173, a resolution authorizing entering into limited use permit number 27890236 with the state of Minnesota Department of Transportation to operate and maintain a trail serving Cedar Lake Regional Trail, Bryn, Mawr, Meadows Park that lies within the right-of-way of Interstate 394.
Resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye,
You have 9 ayes.
that carries. Chair Meyer.
I move resolution 2021-174, a resolution authorizing traffic control modifications at the intersection of Plymouth Avenue North and Theodore Worth Parkway, facilitating pedestrian crossings and access along Plymouth Avenue, accessing Theodore Worth Regional Park.
Second.
Resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Sorry, John, President Cogill was having issues.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Severson.
I appreciate this before the board today. I have had a lot of conversations with my community around some of this. I remember meeting with 3 families along with the president of NERC and having bike riders fly down the hill and hurl cuss words at us because we were in their effing way. So I'm happy that this is here today and that we're going to have more conversations and possible modifications to this intersection.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll on resolution 2021-174.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye,
You have 9 ayes.
that carries. Chair Meyer.
I move resolution 2021-175, a resolution approving installation of 3 public art murals by creatives after curfew on buildings in Beltrami, Logan, and Northeast Parks, and approving a license and maintenance agreement for the artwork with the Beltrami, Logan, and Northeast Park neighborhood organizations.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Discussion. Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll on resolution 2021-175.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
excuse me, sorry, Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan, Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
That carries. Moving on to Administration and Finance, Chair Horny.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2021-177, a resolution directing staff to review and update existing policies to incorporate a consistent approach for addressing conflicts of interest, upholding ethics, and ensuring productive work environments in Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, community advisory committees, commissions, and boards.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Cogill. I've read the background material on this, and I'm just wondering if it's the intent of the motion makers to address commissioner ethics in the terms of like violating open meeting laws, not submitting, not complying with Minnesota campaign law for filing mandatory disclosures, and just, I mean, I see a lot of things reflecting our community advisory committees in this work, but it's really hard. I mean, it's of note to me that the 3 members that passed this out of committee are the same 3 members that admitted to violating Minnesota open meeting law in the development of last year's budget. And I had asked those members last year if they wanted to, if they would be willing to work on how to address some of those violations of Minnesota open meeting law, and they, each one of them to a number, I think, refused at the time. So I'm just wondering if the motion maker intends to see that in the draft policy that is going to be coming forward with the result of this resolution.
I don't know to who that was directed, or if there's any response from anybody. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Cogill. I'm not sure if that question was directed to me or not, but as the initial proposer of this resolution, I have also been looking into codes of conduct and codes of ethics in government agencies with the, I don't know.
Point of order, somebody has a phone.
Okay, so I have been looking into how other bodies handle that in terms of organization-wide as well as for their elected bodies, and I do hope to bring something forward later this year on that topic.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. I guess that said, I'm glad that the originator of this wants to address commissioner violations of open meeting law and campaign finance violations, and just our own code of ethics. And I think it's really hard to set an example if there is behavior that we're not liking to see on committees. I mean, we on community advisory committees, we do have rules already to the conduct and expectation of commissioners on CACs. I think that there's an orientation for committee members when they're on CACs to talk about that. So, I mean, I really think the place to, I mean, I would renew the invitation to work on this in the Standards and Conduct Committee. If the commissioners that, for example, violated open meeting law in development of last year's budget were willing to, were not willing to work on the consequences of their own violation of the law, but are interested in putting ethics enforcements on other people. I mean, it's just, it's really problematic. So, I mean, I can't be, I support the work that's here, but I just really think the place for that is in standards and conduct. And I think it's starting with our own violations of Minnesota open meeting law, which is one of the most basic covenants that we all agree to as commissioners with our oath of office. So I can't support this tonight, but I'm appreciative of the work that's happening here, and I'd like to see that work get done. But I think this resolution is the wrong pathway to do it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bourne. Commissioner Musich.
Hey, President Kogel, I'm disappointed to hear that my colleague from the 6th District is unable to support this. We've had a number of people come to us and tell us that the community advisory committees are an abusive and hostile environment for them to work in. And because no one chose to address that via the methods that were in place, those situations, I think, got far out of control, far further out of control than they needed to. And what I'm trying to do here with this resolution is to ensure that people that are serving in a volunteer capacity have the same protections as our staff when they are working for the board. So I would ask that my colleagues support this resolution and work to help create a supportive and not hostile work environment for our volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Bourne, I do believe this is your second time, is that right?
This would be the second time, correct?
Go ahead, Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Kogel. And I again appreciate the comments from the 5th District Commissioner. But again, I think there's an order of operations, and we can't expect other people to behave to standards that we're not holding ourselves to. And again, I'm appreciative that many people have come forward about our community advisory committees. Many people have come forward over the violation of Minnesota open meeting law and the development of last year's budget. And again, there was an unwillingness to address that. Our budget is a $100 million question. And what agreements were made behind closed doors, we may never know. And I just think that we have the highest obligation to model the type of behavior that we want to see in the public and with our volunteers, and not a do what I say, not as I do policy. So I'm happy to work with the 5th District Commissioner on Resolution 2021-177, but I think the cart is before the horse on this. I think the commissioner from the 5th District should first bring forward a resolution, and I'm happy to work with her on that, addressing the violation of law of commissioners, not a policy on how our volunteers interact in that same area. So again, I'm appreciative of the work. It just feels, I'm sure it's not disingenuous, but it feels a little disingenuous. So I can't support it right now. I'm looking forward to working with the 5th District Commissioner on addressing the violations to Minnesota open meeting law and the development of our budget.
Thank you, Commissioner Bourne. Not seeing any other hands raised. I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
No.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Kogel.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 nay.
That carries. Returning to our my fault. Chair Forney here. Back to administration.
I'd like to move Resolution 2021-178, resolution awarding a construction contract to TMG Construction, Inc. in the amount of $382,528 for the Mary Merrill Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Headquarters Building, Human Resources Office, Rehabilitation Project, City of Minneapolis, e-supplier, bid event number MPLMN 00000001388, and authorizing administrative use of a 5% construction contingency up to $19,126 for necessary construction change orders that may arise with the contract pending approval by the City of Minneapolis Division of Purchasing and Civil Rights Departments, and authorizing the use of Mary Merrill Building Reserve Fund in the amount of $420,000.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Cogill. I'm embarrassed that I guess I wasn't aware that we had a reserve fund for the exclusive capital improvements for headquarters. Can staff talk a little bit about the existence of that fund? And like I said, it's probably an embarrassing question because if it exists, I'm sure I voted for its creation, but I am not familiar with it.
Superintendent or Assistant Superintendent Schroeder?
President Cogill, I can respond to this. The fund has existed since, well, actually for some time. It is, the funds for it are generated through the rental of space in the building. For a long time, Mintahoe rented space in the building. Then there was, Certix has been there and continues to be there. And we had in the first floor in this same space, a consulate office that was in that space. And so those funds have been accruing. We have used them previously for replacement of HVAC systems on the roof. I think that was either last summer or the summer before. They've been useful in actually keeping the building functioning for an office space.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent. Where would I find this project in our CIP?
Assistant Superintendent, go ahead.
President Cogill, Commissioner Bourne, I don't believe that it's actually listed in the CIP.
Okay. I guess that puts me in a challenging spot. So the board has the ability to take capital from, so it sounds like this reserve fund is an internally established fund, and there's not necessarily a resolution anywhere that says, be it resolved that the board create this reserve fund for capital improvements at headquarters. Is that correct, Assistant Superintendent?
President Cogill, Commissioner Bourne, I believe this fund was established before I joined the Park and Recreation Board. It's possible that Director Wiseman might have more information on when it was created. And I apologize for putting Director Wiseman on the spot. That's
I guess I'm putting everyone on the spot, so I'm sorry too.
President Cogill and Commissioner Bourne, I would have to go back and research if there was actual board resolution or direction, but this was actually established when we procured the building and moved into the building, and it was one of the first times that we talked about when we were leasing a property that lease should support the capital improvements of that property. And so it has been in existence since we procured the building, reconstructed the building into an office space and moved in.
But that's not a consistent practice across the board, because I think we just heard that like golf revenue does not always support golf improvements, and that's why there's so much deferred maintenance in golf courses. So I mean, I'm not opposed to making the capital improvement that we need to in the headquarters, but I look at $382,000, and that's a new play pod in any one of our park systems. That's a wading pool. That's it's just a lot of forward-facing amenities versus a new HR office. So again, I'm not opposed to this. I'm wondering if this could maybe wait a cycle and we could get some of those history questions answered and see if there maybe was a board resolution actually establishing this reserve fund, or if these are funds that the board should be looking at every year as having access to them. So I would make a resolution to, I would move to postpone this one cycle.
Second.
There's been a motion to postpone. There's been a motion and a second. And I would appeal to the parliamentarian, but I don't know if that is debatable at this point, similar to tabling.
Mr. Chair, you can debate a motion to postpone according to Robert's rules.
Very good, thank you for that. So anybody who wants to speak to the motion to postpone for one cycle, Commissioner French?
I have my hand raised for the original resolution.
Okay. Commissioner Severson, did you have your hand raised to the motion to postpone?
No, I have it raised previous to this. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone this item? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
No.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
No.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
No.
Vice President Vita,
No.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes, 4 nays.
The item has been postponed. Moving on, Chair Forney.
I'll move resolution 178, resolution approving a shared use agreement between Minneapolis Park and Recreation and Fort Snelling Lease Housing Associates 1 LLLP to allow the MPRB to connect to a discharge into the private sewer system owned and operated by FSLHA, located at Fort Snelling State Park and the upper post of Fort Snelling State Park.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
That carries. Moving on to resolution 2021. Oh, sorry. Moving on, Chair Forney.
Excuse me. Resolution 2021, I'd like to move Resolution 2021-180, resolution authorizing use of State of Minnesota contract number 144394 with Pathfinder Trail Building LLC pending approval by City of Minneapolis Procurement Division in the amount of $216,150 to furnish and construct the park improvements of Perkins Hill Park, and further authorizing the administrative use of a 10% 10% construction contingency up to $21,615 for necessary construction change orders that may arise with the contract.
The resolution has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, President Cogill. I just wanted to encourage my colleagues to support this evening. This is a great opportunity for a hidden park in North Minneapolis that can be highly utilized by our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Are there any other questions or comments or questions from commissioners? Any other comments? Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll on the resolution.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer. I believe I've heard ayes from Meyer and Severson. Commissioner Hassan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
Resolution carries. Moving on into unfinished business, we have 2 items. First is Resolution 2021-185. I'll ask for a motion on this resolution, which is approving a second 5-year contract extension with Bread and Pickle LLC for concession operations to be performed at Lake Harriet within the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park and expiring on December 31st, 2025. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion first.
Oh, move it. Sorry.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second before us. We have a proper motion. I'll ask the if there are questions. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Cogill. I'm interested in understanding whether or not Bread and Pickle LLC is current on all contractual obligations with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
Thank you for the question. I will ask either Assistant Superintendent Schroeder or Mr. Stenzel, if he's on, Director Stenzel, to answer that question.
Thank you, Commissioner Cogill. President Cogill, Commissioner Musich, yes. I actually did have a little presentation if we wanted to look at it, but they are current. In 2019, we had a little bit of a glitch as far as on their end and our end on payments. Those payments were rectified in 2020, and they made all payments in 2020 going forward over the COVID year.
Okay, thank you for that additional information. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Bourne.
I'm sorry, I had the same question as Commissioner Musich. I just didn't.
Thank you, Commissioner Bourne. I'm not seeing any other questions from commissioners regarding the resolution. Not seeing any other questions. Right. Thank you, Director Stenzel. And I will ask the secretary to please take the roll on the resolution.
Commissioner Bourne.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Severson,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice President Vita,
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
That carries. I will now ask for a motion on Resolution 2021-195, a resolution terminating any and all space sharing agreements with the Minnesota State Patrol for the use of Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board property and facilities located at 2117 West River Road North.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from commissioners? Vice President Vita.
Thank you, President Cogill. I would just like a little background information on where this is coming from.
Certainly, thank you, Vice President. I would perhaps ask Commissioner French if you'd like to speak to the resolution. I worked with him and we determined to put this on the main board agenda due to the fact that it's an important issue at the moment. Commissioner French, would you like to say anything to address the resolution at hand?
Absolutely. We the last week or so, we have been dealing with a lot of unrest in our city, and a lot of the folks who have been at the heart of putting that unrest down or stifling the protesters have been the Minnesota State Patrol. And so I think it's a time for us to end our agreement with them and they're sharing our space without us being compensated. And it's just time for us to end our relationship with each other right now.
Thank you, Commissioner French. So I'm not going to be supporting this tonight. This seems like political grandstanding to me. The state is a huge partner in our work. We receive, I'm sure, close to $20 million and have the opportunity to do a lot of youth programming with our partnership at the state. These officers, it's my understanding that they use the parking lot and the toilets. I don't see that as, I don't understand what the connection to the parking lot has to do with anything. And again, I see the state as a huge partner in the work that we do at the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, being an entity that gives us at least $20 million. That's it for me, President Cogill.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Forney, followed by Meyer.
Thank you. I was a bit surprised to see this too. I understand that we're in a place that, Attorney General Ellison said it very, very well yesterday after the verdicts, that accountability is essential in this time and place. And I don't see how severing a relationship is going to benefit any change. It's going to serve our community. I think just the opposite. The more that we can build relationships, the more we will be able to transform and make change. I know Commissioner John Harrington, and I believe that he is interested, as we are, in holding everyone accountable and transforming how policing occurs. So I feel that this is a retaliatory, and I'd like to see us look at the relationship as something constructive. And by holding them closer to us, I think is a more accountable way of doing things. I mean, I will not be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you. I brought up my objections when this agreement was brought forward a couple years ago. I still hold the same view. It's not retaliatory in my view, but I still think that we should terminate this agreement, and I will support the resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Mawr. Any other discussion from commissioners? Other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll.
Commissioner Bourne,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
No.
Commissioner Severson,
No.
Commissioner Mawr,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner French,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
No.
Vice President Vita,
No.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes, 4 nays.
That carries. Moving on to new business. We have a discussion item presentation regarding Indigenous land, people, and nations acknowledgement practices proposed in the Parks for All draft 2021 comprehensive plan. And I can provide a little bit more context and then turn it over to Carrie Christensen. I think it's notable for commissioners to see the work that's being done thinking about land acknowledgements throughout our practices in public meetings. And I'm hoping that this can be a discussion point for getting guidance on how we develop and do that for our board meetings as well. I've had a couple of conversations with commissioners about this, and I'm hoping that we can have a discussion about this here and see the work that has been done so far and get any thoughts on what we could do moving forward to engage community on this a bit more, get feedback, or kind of enhance our thinking to take some action in how we talk about Indigenous land acknowledgements throughout our system and throughout our business. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carrie.
President Cogill, commissioners, thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you tonight to talk about this important part of our comprehensive plan and of the work of the last few years of the Parks for All work groups and community advisory committee, community thought leaders in the region around this topic. So I think I first want to just state that I'm really excited to be able to share these aspects of the plan with you. I don't consider myself an expert on the topic of Indigenous land, people, and nations acknowledgements. As a white woman that is not Indigenous to this land, I especially feel that I need to name that, I'm here to specifically speak to the comprehensive plan draft content and process. Happy to field questions and connect you with resources that we've connected with over the last few years in the process. So again, very grateful to be here though. Thank you. So next slide, please. I always, whenever I come before you, I just want to make sure that I'm getting the comprehensive plan out in front of the commissioners and the community. Just a reminder that the draft plan is currently out until July 18th at the direction of the Board of Commissioners from enaction in January. The comprehensive plan draft sets the policy direction for the next decade of our system. The planning process involves community, park board staff, agency partners, and commissioners in shaping the future direction of the Minneapolis Park and Rec system. Just a heads up that we will be issuing a plan addendum in coming weeks with some updates to Chapter 3, including level of service guidelines and a few additions to the appendix. So we'll be doing extensive outreach. Make sure to get a copy to all of the commissioners. Look for that on our project website, which is listed down below, the bit.ly/MPRV comp plan. Also wanted to highlight one additional engagement that's kind of taken off in the last month, which is a new student engagement portal. And this is on that same website I just mentioned. And it's a collaboration with the Minneapolis public school system. which is a pretty exciting kind of online education and engagement opportunity. We're also offering monthly virtual open houses and still have an online survey. Thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the Parks for All process around this topic. It came up as a really significant topic for us to explore as part of the comprehensive planning process. We held a panel discussion with Indigenous leaders and scholars at the Parks Summit last spring. There were Indigenous acknowledgement practices and language integrated into all of the CAC meetings with the guidance of our CAC chair, Carly Badhart-Bull. Several CAC, there's been several recommendations made by our Community Advisory Committee, as well as several of the focus groups that informed policy in the comp plan draft and work groups. They all sort of coalesced around this topic in different ways, and you'll see the strategies in a moment that I'll share with you that came out of all of that thinking. We also did an inventory of Indigenous acknowledgement or collaboration work at the Park Board to date to amplify that, like in the spirit of the comp plan, we've been really trying to amplify what works in our system. So I'll also share a little bit about what we're currently up to. And then finally, some research on international practices was another aspect of our planning process, sort of looking at international trends. Thank you. Next slide. So there's some extensive notes online. The link is very long, but you can find it through our Parks for All website. Notes on the panel that we hosted. And these were the panel participants: Sean Sherman, Maddie Harper DiCarlo, Kate Bean, and Carly Badhart-Bull. Our framing questions were, what should MPRB consider as we work on Indigenous acknowledgement practices at MPRB? How in everyday work can we think of Indigenous people in space via acknowledgement, celebration, and uplifting of these voices? So really thinking around this question of the statement that President Cogill framed, but also creating practices, procedures, a culture of acknowledgement across our system, not just in the words, but also in our practices and our physical landscapes. Next slide, please. So some of the sort of findings from the panel, or these are the recommendations actually that came from the panelists. So number one, name reclamation. They suggested that we create clear processes and know how to support community-led efforts that are already occurring. Number two, land acknowledgement statements. They should be personal, specific to the land, the tribes, and the treaties. They should change over time. Statements are a step, but should also be part of a system of approaches. Number three, cultural uses of parks and parks as classrooms for Indigenous learning, practices, and belonging was a topic that came up quite a bit as a recommendation to us. Panelists also expressed appreciation that the Park Board is thinking about next steps, about creating a culture of land acknowledgement. So I just want to make sure to highlight that too. There was a lot of real positive excitement around this topic. Number five, staff and commissioner trainings. There was a suggestion for ongoing trainings that are woven into the institution's work, suggested that curriculum developed in collaboration with compensation of Native professionals to craft curriculum or support trainings. Number six, harvesting on parkland and cultural uses of plants was something highlighted as an important aspect that our park system can offer and has offered. Number seven, an exploration of giving land back and reparations. What would that look like? What are some of the sort of steps to consider in these processes? Number eight, engaging with tribal leadership and Indigenous communities, making sure to coordinate between projects within the Park Board and our departments, and to have a unified approach that is relationship-based. Number nine, historical interpretation. Just acknowledging that there are many layered histories at different sites, different tribal histories. There's, of course, European settlement histories. There's acknowledging that across time and people that our histories are very complex. And finally, number 10, language, to integrate Indigenous languages into interpretive signage or naming of parks. Again, we already sort of acknowledged that name reclamation is one way of doing that. So next slide, please. I'm really grateful to our panelists for all the wisdom that they shared with us. I want to give a shout out to them for the time that they spent with us. So I also mentioned that we did an inventory of existing practices, partnerships, and related work that is currently occurring or is coming online at the park board. So just quickly, there is ongoing tribal leadership project updates that are coordinated across projects. There's also some tribal leadership site of significance coordination, various community advisory committees, a few events, some documents, and staff are regularly or starting to use Indigenous acknowledgement statements. There's been some design integration of Indigenous language, materials, plants, and interpretation coming online. There is also, of course, we have some examples, an example in our system of name reclamation with B'day Makaska. We have an annual event centering the Indigenous community. We have, of course, Native community-centered engagement, which is different than tribal leadership coordination, thinking about folks and residents and park users that identify as Indigenous, and how do we reach those folks as a part of our sort of diverse community. And then finally, public art focused on Indigenous narratives. Of course, we've got an example or two of that in our system as well. So just saying there's, we've got some great momentum, and how do we keep the momentum up and think about our future, which brings me to my next slide, please. So one of the other points that the comprehensive plan offers is the idea of this draft statement. Let's think of it as a starting point for an acknowledgement statement. So as part of Parks for All, the Park Board has been exploring how to integrate acknowledgement of land and Indigenous peoples into our work, procedures, and spaces. We collectively acknowledge that the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board system is located on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of Indigenous people. This land holds great historical, spiritual, and personal significance for its original stewards, the Native nations and peoples of this region. And now here's an example of how it might become more specific, right? So we've actually drawn an excerpt from The Land We're On, which is a resource from the Native Governance Center, a local organization that's doing some really wonderful work. And so I'll do my best to read this statement, just as a way of sort of grounding us in the land, which is a really important part of our system, right? So Minnesota Makoche is the homeland of the Dakota people. The Dakota have lived here for many thousands of years. Anishinaabe people reside here too, and reach their current homelands after following the mega shell to the food that grows on water. Indigenous people from other tribal nations also reside in Minnesota and have made innumerable contributions to our region. All right, next slide, thank you. Okay, so this is my last slide, but I did want to make sure to point out that there in the draft comprehensive plan, there are some strategies put forth as building blocks for us to work from in the next decade of our system, and knowing that these are starting points, right? And some of them have a little bit of momentum already. These were crafted again from all those various recommendations that were made by the over 150 people that have, informed, actually did the writing of the comprehensive plan, not to mention the thousands of voices that gave input throughout the last couple of years. So we've distilled it down, really want to focus on these three strategies. The first is in goal 1, which is around foster belonging and equity. Strategy 3 is to amplify Indigenous stories, histories, cultural practices, and connections to land through employment, partnerships, programming, interpretation, and community engagement. Goal 7 also has a strategy related to the topic, which the goal 7 is to connect through communications and technology. And strategy 5 is to educate staff in the community on critical issues facing the city and region, specifically, and if you bounce down to the second to last bullet, Indigenous history, rights, culture, and perspectives. And then finally, goal 8 also has a strategy around this. Goal 8 is focused on cultivating a thriving workforce. Strategy 17 is to develop and train staff and commissioners on Native acknowledgement practices that incorporate the complexities of treaties, tribal differences, personal experience, and layered place-based histories. I think that wraps up my presentation. Next slide, please. Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Thank you. And I will now hand it back to President Cogill. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to share, and I'll let him take the discussion from here.
Thank you, Carrie, very much for the presentation and all the work that's been done. I will just entertain any questions from commissioners. Again, any questions regarding the work that's been done on the comprehensive plan, or any thoughts about how we may be able to incorporate or think about land acknowledgement going forward in our work? Commissioner Mawr.
Thank you. First, just wanted to ask for clarification. So under the land acknowledgement statements, you said that they should be personal, specific to land, tribes and treaties, and change over time. And I just wanted to ask for clarification about the change over time part. So can you expand on that? Like would there be a different, like a new statement every year? Or what did you have in mind with that?
President Cogill, Commissioner Mawr, again, I'm not an expert on the topic, and I might actually recommend that if there's interest in a deeper dive into procedures around developing land acknowledgement statements, that we work with a Native consultant to help advise us on the topic. But what the idea of being specific to place and knowing that this is a work in progress is definitely a spirit that is expressed in the plan and in the statement, that the way that the statement is framed in the comprehensive plan, and the idea that it's a starting point, and we will continue to learn and unearth stories, unearth sites of significance even potentially, and that our relationship and our understanding will be evolving, and that, you know, it's not about just sort of creating a statement and being done and having that same statement be the same everywhere we go at every meeting, but it's kind of making sure that we keep it alive and we continue to evolve it. But again, I'm not an expert. That's really just the spirit of what we intended in the plan.
Thank you. And one other question about the naming and reclamation. Where are we at on Sibley Park and Triangle in renaming and reclaiming those?
I may actually see if Director Arvidsson or Assistant Superintendent Schroeder have any updates on those.
I do. I can speak to Sibley Park specifically, if recognized.
Go ahead, Director Arvidsson.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Mawr. President Cogill. There is a capital improvement project scheduled at Sibley Park that's just getting underway. We are finalizing a community engagement plan for that right now. Our intent is to have a community conversation about the Sibley Park name at the same time, so that we're only engaging the community once around that project. So the community engagement plan that will come as a P&C to the board soon for the Sibley Park improvements will also reflect our intent to talk to the community about the change of that name, around which there has been some discussion. We're not yet specifically addressing Sibley Triangle in I believe your district, Commissioner Mawr, but I think it's worthwhile to have the discussion about Sibley generally along with the Sibley Park project. So we are incorporating that in.
Yeah, and I know that we did bring up Sibley Triangle in the East of the River Master Plan. I have had constituents reach out to me since then, urging us to change it. So I would ask staff to add that triangle to their workload. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mawr. Any other discussion from commissioners or questions or comments? Right. Seeing none, thank you, Carrie, very much for the presentation. I hope to, Commissioner Bourne has raised his hand. Commissioner Bourne, go ahead.
Thank you, President Cogill. Ms. Christensen, if the Parks for All plan comes forward after the engagement period, like you have the draft language for this entire section that you'd be asking the board to vote on as of right now, right? And that's effectively the 10 recommendations that were before us. Like that's ultimately the language that the board would be voting on in a few months, right?
President Cogill, Commissioner Bourne, following the end of the public comment period, we look at all of the comments. Of course, we'll tabulate them and we'll make changes to the plan based on the comments that are provided during the public comment period. So I cannot confirm if this exact language will be in the plan when it comes to you for adoption.
But when the community engagement plan had expired a few months back, there was language that was ready to be presented to the board at that time based on all the feedback that you had received up until that point, correct?
President Cogill, Commissioner Bourne, the public comment period was still open and we had not tabulated all of the comments at that stage. It was still open for a couple more weeks. We always wait to the end of the public comment period to tabulate and to sort of, summarize and look at the plan and make revisions to the plan. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah. And so I guess what I would say is, I'm ready to vote on a land acknowledgement statement today if we had the language before us. I see some good start of draft language there and the value sets that came as a recommendation from the Parks for All work group. I'm ready to adopt those recommendations today or at our next cycle, and let those stand independently of the Parks for All plan. I think the feedback that we got from leaders in that community was incredibly robust. So I don't think we need to wait until July, I just don't think we need to wait on some of this work that's that important and can be done that easily. But what it looks like is that there's some draft language, but that's not final. I'd like to work offline with some of my commissioners to bring some final language forward, and some members of the community to bring some of that final language and final recommendations forward before July. And to the points on Sibley Park and Sibley Triangle, what I'm kind of hearing there is that we could be years away still from doing the right thing on that. And it takes 6 votes. It takes 6 votes today. So, I mean, if we're talking about wanting to do it, I would encourage the commissioner that is talking about wanting to do it to just put forward a resolution and do it. If we've heard from the community and we know it's the right thing to do, let's do it. The one thing I learned from the Chain of Lakes master plan was, for too long we hid behind process to not do the right thing, and ultimately when push came to shove, there wasn't anybody well, there were some folks that voted against doing the right thing with renaming the parkways, but I think we can just do the right thing on Sibley Park and Sibley Triangle. So I'd encourage the commissioner that is interested in moving those to bring those forward, work with the community members he's been working with, and bring those forward, and I think he'd have 6 votes.
President Cogill, if I may, I have a clarification.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. So Commissioner Bourne, I think you brought up a great point around the statement itself, and just separate from the strategies that were shared, the statement can absolutely, is already being used and changed and modified. Currently, it's a practice that is sort of become an informal practice, and I think that absolutely the statement itself could be refined and created in a more formal manner as something separate from the Parks for All document, that then the final draft could reflect that modified statement if there was more of an official statement. The draft plan is really acknowledging that we need to do this, right, and giving some building blocks, but not naming that as the official statement. So just want to note that those could be 2 separate things, as far as I understand. And I don't know if Director Arvidsson, if you have any other thoughts on that.
Thank you, Carrie. Did you have anything else, John?
President Cogill, I think it was well put. I don't have anything to add to that.
Thank you. Commissioner French.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just give a little background why we're not voting on it like right now. A couple of months ago, me and President Cogill were talking about doing this. We thought it'd be the best interest to get as much community input as possible. We want to make sure that the folks who land this, we're acknowledging it, had some input in this decision, input on what the statement would be. This is something that probably, as the largest landowner in the city of Minneapolis, probably should have been done years ago. This is the common practice even in private boards. Like we do land acknowledgement rights at union meetings now sometimes. So I mean, for us as a municipality who are trustees of a large amount of land in the city of Minneapolis, this is something that we need to think about and talk about and get as much input from the community as possible. I'm pretty confident that this will go through, but I just want to make sure we get as much input as possible. That's my only reason for wanting to not vote on it right now or pause. I just want to get as many voices as we possibly can. So thank you, President Koga, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner French. Not seeing any other hands raised. I appreciate the feedback, and I think it's helpful for me and hopefully for staff as well as we work on next steps to both engage the community and perhaps bring something forward a little bit more quickly than the rest of the plan. And again, thank you, Carrie, so much for the presentation. I know it's not the direct wheelhouse to talk about all this stuff, but to talk about it in the lens of the planning work and all the great engagement that has happened so far, we can only build off of that. So thanks a lot again. With that, I'll recess the full board and go into committee. Our first committee here is the Recreation Committee. So I'll turn it over to Chair French. Chair French, you're muted.
All right, time being 7:22, I ask the Secretary to call the roll for Recreation Committee.
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Hassan.
Not Dot.
Commissioner Hassan, was that a present? Vice President Vita.
Present.
Vice Chair Severson.
Present.
Chair French.
Here. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Can the Secretary take the roll to approve the agenda?
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan. Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Vice Chair Severson.
Aye.
Chair French.
Aye. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. You have 4 ayes, 1 absent.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes on Wednesday, January 6, 2021.
So moved.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan. Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Vice Chair Severson.
Aye.
Chair French.
Aye. Thank you.
You have
We
4
got.
ayes.
I'm so sorry, Secretary.
It's okay. It's okay. 4 ayes, 1 absent.
So we have an action item up for today, and the board will adopt the resolution 2021-186 captioned as follows: the resolution authorizing the Phelps Aquatic Center shared use agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and Minneapolis Public Schools, which defines MPS annual use, and the MPS shall pay $150,000 per year in 2021 to 2024. Is there any discussion? Hold on.
I would move that motion with the correction that it's Phillips Aquatic Center. not Phillips.
Sorry, what did I say?
You said Phillips, but I don't have a pool there, unfortunately.
We got a new pool at Phelps. All right. So are there any, is any discussion? Anybody have any questions? Secretary, please take the roll.
You have questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Yeah. Oh, Vice President Vito.
Thank you. No question. I just wanted to say that I'm super excited about this and I'm happy to be moving forward with this vote tonight.
Thank you, Vice President Vito. Seeing no more hands, I will ask the Secretary to take the roll. Oh, hold on. I see. Commissioner Steve has a question.
Yeah, so I'm just letting everyone know that I'll be voting on this tonight. I do not. There's some specific wording I was supposed to use this evening. I do not benefit from this, or let me see here. So I had the correct language. I checked with Council Rice today to see if I could vote on this, and he said that I could this evening. If anyone has questions, let me know.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. I'd ask Secretary Ringo to take the roll.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Chair Severson.
Vice Chair Severson, aye.
Oh, sorry. Vice Chair Severson, thank you. Chair French.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you, Secretary Ringo. So we have one study report with Assistant Superintendent Cox will be coming and talking about our enhanced use program. So I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Cox.
Thank you, Chair French. Good evening, Commissioners. I have a very brief presentation tonight on enhanced programs. And so I will just pause for 1 second while we get the slide deck pulled up. Next slide, please. So as I get started, I just want to remind everybody that enhanced program is kind of an umbrella concept. There will be several programs that I will bring to you as the season goes on that talks about what we're doing specifically, but just want to give a quick reminder that we committed to developing some additional programs for youth age 22 and for kids that we recognize may be disconnected from programs both with us or around the community. So that was I just wanted to correct that. Umbrella speaks to kids that we aren't currently attracting with our current programming. Next slide, please. So in my presentation a few months ago, we talked about who those kids might be. I gave you the age bands 12 to 22, and we talked about those young people right in the middle, not the ones that are heavily programmed because their family knows how to do that or is looking forward to programs both with us or with other agencies, or for the kids who are, close enough to the parks and they kind of walk themselves over and engage in the ways that they feel comfortable. So we're not talking about those kids in this. And we're also not talking about the kids who may have had some interactions with other agencies being the juvenile justice system, some other agency that has a different set of eyes on those kids. So initially we said, neither of those. It's that middle kind of bubble kid, the kid that nobody's really thinking about. They're just kind of moving about life, not really programmed, not really in any trouble, but just kind of moving along. As we started to think about this and talk to community members, I heard something very different. And if you could go to the next slide, I'll show you what I mean. What I heard people say is, yeah, Terry, that sounds really good, except for think about the kids who may be a bit closer to that right side. They may be a bit closer because they may have had some very low level interaction with the juvenile justice system. They may have had some family member who was a bit more engaged in the lifestyle. And so think about those kids a bit differently. And to be honest, I hadn't. But I think here's an opportunity for us to hear our community and be more responsive. And so I'm not going to tell you that we're going to fully move into the intervention bubble, but we will think about kids that are a bit closer to that side than what I initially thought, kind of the right in the center kids. Next slide, please. So with that said, we started to think about an employment readiness program for those kids that I just described, the ones that are a bit closer to the right side of the spectrum than I initially thought. And so we kind of started to think about, imagine your future as a employment program. And this would be an 8-week program that's going to work for 17 to 22-year-olds. And I'm going to talk in a bit about why this is so different. How does it stand out for some of the other programs that are either in our agency or in the community as well? But with this program, we are going to work with young people to break down barriers to employment, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and also help them become more employment ready through a variety of ways. Next slide, please. So Imagine Your Future is a pilot program, and we're going to focus on 30 youth, 2 cohorts of 15, 17 to 22. That is on the older end of youth employment, and that's intentional, so we'll talk about that. It is going to be an 8-hour program, 3-hour sessions each week, and we're going to host the trainings, one north side, one south side, MLK Park and Farview. Next slide. So we recognize that as we think about the 17 to 22-year-old young person who is closer to the right side of the spectrum, they may have some challenges that don't easily lend themselves to getting them a job with us. And we want to work through that with them. And so what we envision is that all of the young people will start together week 1, helping them, with some personal development and employment readiness. And by week 3, as we're thinking about employment exploration, we will have done background checks for some of those kids, fully understanding that not all of those kids, for a variety of reasons, will be prepared to be employed. They may have something on their background. They may not have access to their Social Security card or any of the other documentation that's necessary for them to get a job. But we are not going to abandon them there. We're going to ask them to stay with us while we help them work through those things. We've already been engaging with folks who do expungement work to help kids who may have some low-level things on their records that we think we might be able to help them deal with, if possible. We've said, if you don't have your Social Security card, let us help you with that. We want to be a bit of a bridge to gainful employment and moving on to the next part of your life. For the kids who are ready, they will continue to be placed in jobs in our organization, kind of throughout the system. And they too will be strongly encouraged, actually even incentivized, to come back each week after they've done their work shift and stay with the learning that we want to provide for them through this 8 weeks. The employment isn't 8 weeks, it's just the training part that is. So you see in front of you what the themes are for each of those 8 weeks and how we intend to support kids as they move along. Next slide, please. So what's different about this? So, there are lots of youth employment programs over the summer in a variety of places, right? But what we feel like is really different about this is that we've really narrowly defined the audience. It is for the kids that are a bit older youth, 17 to 22, and those who may have a little bit of a hiccup in their employment readiness. And that doesn't exist everywhere. We will have intentional recruitment strategies. We are seeking these kids. We want to do what we can to make a difference in their lives so that, again, they can move on to their next phase. That doesn't happen as often either. For many youth employment programs, it is a passive strategy. You put out a job posting, whoever shows up, and they get the job. In this, we want to be intentional about making sure we're reaching out to the kids that we think may benefit from this the most. We intend to provide additional personal and professional supports for them as they move along in the program. As I just mentioned, are there ways that we can help you clear up some of your low-level background stuff? Are there ways that we can help you secure some of the identification stuff that you need so that you can get into the jobs that you're looking for? We anticipate having less traditional speakers for kids. We want kids to hear from adults who may have had a hiccup in their past and has turned their life around. We have reached out to a variety of folks from a variety of backgrounds in their current jobs, but may have, at 17 did something that landed them maybe a few years in prison and have come out and have turned their lives around. I'm reaching out to a woman that I know that actually did several years in prison and is now an attorney. And so we want to make sure that we don't put in front of the kids the people whose lives have been somewhat of the straight and narrow, because these young people who may have had some hiccups may not see success as attainable for them because they've had those hiccups. And we want to debunk that for them. And then lastly, we'll have ongoing support while they're in the job. We want to hold their hands, at least until they feel like they have their legs under them along the way. Next slide. I think that is the last of it. Here are some of our community partners that we've already been engaging with, and they either want to do referrals for us or want to be presenters and help us support young people. Next slide. The contact for the program is Service Area Manager Leslie Benson. There are still seats available, so if you know some young people that you think might benefit from this, please encourage them to reach out to her so that we can get them seated as the program will launch. I believe the date is May 13th. Next slide. That is the end of it. As I mentioned, it was a pretty brief and high level, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Cox. That was an awesome presentation. I have some questions and some accolades, but I think Vice President Vital has some questions.
Thank you, Chair French. Assistant Superintendent Cox, you always deliver. This is just extremely impressive. I love how thoughtful it is. Just slide after slide, it's everything we need in these times right now, especially for the kids that you are targeting. I also want to offer, I don't know how, commissioners fit in this or commissioners' husbands, but myself and Ronald would love to speak to these group of young people that you're talking about. We've recently been targeted with a website that does talk about some true things that have happened in our past. Over 20 years ago, we've overcome that. We would be more than happy to talk to these young people about, coming up through trauma and having a hard start, but then where you can land, later on. I'm happy to see that you are working to get rid of some of the things that they've had to deal with at 17 now versus at 45 like us, something comes back from 20 plus years ago. So I'm happy to see that. This is so thoughtful, Assistant Superintendent Cox. I mean, you really hit it with this. You nailed it. There's so many good things about this. And like I said, you always deliver. This is so fast that you put this presentation before us on what this could be. I'm super excited about how this is going to move forward. And please, please, please feel free to reach out to Ronald and I if we can help you with this in any type of way. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Vita. I welcome any of you, all of you who feel like you have something to lend to the young people who will be sitting in the rooms with us. And so I encourage all of you to think about your calendars and how you may engage with this. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, I wish I could take all the credit. I kind of laid the vision for Director Mimi Kalb and Leslie Vincent, and I'm telling you, they took off like a rocket. So I'm super excited about them being able to connect with this work, because we all know somebody, be it someone from your family, someone from your neighborhood, from your school, that has had some hiccups. There are very few of us that kind of buzz through life unscathed. So
thank you for mentioning the other staff that helped. Thanks to them as well, whoever had a part in this. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the outcome of this. And I'll be in touch for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your accolades, Vice President Vito. Much appreciated. Commissioner Severson.
Thank you, Chair French. I'm glad that we are including 22-year-olds in this. I feel like in the past, the park board has not had much for that 18 to 25-year-old group of young people who are entering adulthood, being able to attend open gym, teen night, and then turning 18, 19 and not having much, or not having the money to participate when it cost $5 or $4 as opposed to when it was free. The one ask that I would have is that I didn't see Phyllis Wheatley as a community partner, as somebody who's working on diversion work and a cornerstone in our community, and somebody who we used to share space with, but kind of still do share space with. I think it'd be important to include Phyllis Wheatley as a community partner moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. I absolutely will do that. They have been a great partner with us as we work through full service community schools as well. So I will make sure to do that still yet this week.
Thank you, Vice Chair Severson. Did you have any more questions? Vice Chair Severson, are you finished?
I'm done. I'm sorry. I'll lower my hand. Sorry about that, Chair.
It's okay. Does anybody else have any more questions? All right, I'll finish by saying I want to get in line behind Vice President Vital as far as someone who would love to come and give my life experiences. Come from one of the highest incarcerated zip codes in the country, in 5306 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I think the population that you're targeting right now is the population. It's the population. I think that's the forgot about population. A lot of times people think when you turn 18, you're an adult and your mind is developed and focused and you know what to do. Only if that was true. Mm-hmm. Even though you're 19, 20, sometimes you still have the mind of a kid. And I've seen that earlier this week when, a young kid, he was a kid, for whatever the reason. Yeah. So they're kids. And I'm glad we're acknowledging that. I'm glad we're acknowledging the fact that this demographic needs help. Assistant Superintendent Cox, I appreciate your work. And anytime you need somebody to come and talk or hang out, I'm a youth worker. I'm a retired youth worker, and I still love working with kids. So please let me know where I can show up, and I'll be right behind Vice President Vital, trying to give my life experiences to youngsters who come, sometimes they get a hurdle or a stumbling block, but I'm glad we're here to try to mitigate some of the consequences that could have. So that being said, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Cox. I appreciate your presentation. I will adjourn the Recreation Committee.
Thank you all for your support.
So the Recreation Committee is adjourned.
think I'm up next with Operations and Environment. Is that correct, President Cogill?
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. The time being 7:45 p.m., I will call the Operations and Environment Committee to order. Secretary Ringgold, if you could please take the roll.
Commissioner Mawr,
Here.
Commissioner Hassan,
Here.
Commissioner Forney,
Here.
Vice Chair French,
Here.
Chair Musich.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Secretary Ringgold, if you could please call the roll.
Commissioner Mawr,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice Chair French,
Aye.
Chair Musich.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Wonderful. That motion carries. At this time, I will also entertain a motion to approve our minutes from January 6, 2021.
So moved.
Thanks, guys. Secretary Ringgold, if you could please call the roll.
Commissioner Mawr,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice Chair French, Vice Chair French.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Chair Musich.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Wonderful. That carries as well. This evening, we have an action item before us. It's 2021-194, a resolution directing the development of a memorandum of understanding, an MOU with Green Minneapolis to establish a partnership to plan, fund, and implement an urban tree carbon offset program that does not impact Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's current funding for its other programs, and supporting Green Minneapolis's $2,250,000 proposal to the City of Minneapolis Office of Sustainability to fund a 1-year pilot program. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. I need to pull up the right things. I can see if anyone on the committee has questions this evening. Commissioner Mawr.
Yeah, I would like to request a presentation about this.
Okay, so I don't have a presentation for you this evening, but I can give you some background to how I got to this point that I brought this resolution forward. And hopefully that will answer the questions that you have. Late last year, Green Minneapolis approached Commissioner Forney and I to talk about how we can be planting more trees in the city. In conversations with the Tree Advisory Committee members and the Forestry Department and the Park Board, they came to understand that we really need to be planting a lot more trees if we want to be seriously addressing the impacts of climate change in terms of increasing the heat island effect in the city, as well as increased rainfall and the need to try to mitigate the impacts of that on our built infrastructure. So Commissioner Forney and I had lots of conversations about ways that we could do this. And the carbon offset program seems to be the fastest route forward to increasing the funding for tree planting in the city, particularly now that Councilmember Palmisano's office is championing one-time funding of a pilot program for us to try this out. That's kind of the high level of how we got here. Did you have any additional questions?
Yeah, well, I have some comments to make if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I invited Assistant Superintendent Barrick and representative from Green Minneapolis to speak at the Tree Advisory Commission in January, and they are very excited about the ideas that are being floated around to help it improve tree planting. We did have a comment during open time expressing some concern about this. I guess for me, my priority is to make sure that this work gets done. As this MOU is drafted, if there are opportunities for us to hire staff within the park board system, I will certainly prefer that. If there are, for whatever reason, things that can't be done within the purview of the park board and we need to use an outside source, I'm willing to support that if it's necessary to get this work done, so long as this work gets done. But I'm happy that we're focusing on this issue because it's really important.
Thank you, Commissioner Mawr. Just to address the staffing concerns of our union representation, this proposal that's before the Office of Sustainability currently will allow us to retain our current staffing in 2022 when the tree levy has expired. So that was a big focus that Commissioner Forney and I had, was how do we find ways to preserve our staffing and to enhance it going forward to enable us to not only plant more trees, but also care for those trees once they're in the ground. So that is something that obviously that we're thinking about too, as we move forward with trying to find a way to get that money in place. Did you have additional comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, if I could have you lower your hand because I'm unable to do that as chair of the committee. Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. I'm very excited about this. As Chair Musich indicated, we've been in conversation with people from Green Minneapolis, from the city, and my concern has come from the expiration of the tree dedication levy and how, number one, yes, how can we assure that continues, that good work continues and actually increases, okay? But also my concern is much broader than that. And, I'm so appreciative to hear that staff have been conversing with Green Minneapolis about their working with businesses in downtown Minneapolis and how can they approach the carbon offset credits. And so it's so opportune, and I just feel like in so many ways the stars have just aligned. The city asked us, to work with this, and so that's why we're bringing forward this memorandum of understanding to move this forward and make it concrete. I suppose that's the wrong word but I'm very, very excited about it, and hope that it will pass out of committee and onto the full board.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. In the interest of having a smooth meeting after this, I will, contrary to our rules, allow Commissioner Bourne to speak in committee onto this topic. Commissioner Bourne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Forney. Or Chair Musich.
Chair Musich.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Musich. I'm not familiar with that rule, but thank you for graciously allowing me to speak. So I have some real concerns with 21.
Could we ask for the commissioner to please turn on his visuals?
So I have some concerns with Resolution 2021-194.
Commissioner Bourne, can you please turn on your mic? Or I'm sorry, not your mic, your camera, in compliance with our rules.
Yep. There you go.
They're not on.
So Resolution 2021-194. If we're concerned that the tree levy,
I will just note for the record that your camera is not on and you're in non-compliance with the rules currently.
I must be having some technical difficulties because I just turned it on, and I think the cameras, if you're having technical difficulties, that's allowed under the rules.
Since you have technical difficulties every time you claim you're turning on your camera, I'd appreciate it if you could work with IT prior to our next meeting to address that issue.
I'm happy to keep working with IT on that. So Resolution 2021-194, if we're concerned that the tree levy is going away, the answer isn't to advocate for public funds to go to a private organization like 2021-194 does. It's to advocate to expand the Minneapolis Park Board's levy.
Could you
And
explain
the
to me how
background,
this funding is going to a private organization?
I will in just a moment, Commissioner Musich, if I can have the floor that you've so graciously given me. The background of Resolution 2021-194 just simply doesn't do that. The language states that we would be advocating for like $250,000 of public funds to go to Green Minneapolis. And you don't have to look very far through 990s to look at Green Minneapolis and the Downtown Improvement District are pretty much really big paychecks for Steve Kramer. And then if you look at the frontline work that's happening from Green Minneapolis and the Downtown Improvement District, it's all folks that are making substandard wages to the Minneapolis Park Board. So if we wanted to do, and I think to Commissioner Meyer's point, the answer is to advocate for $2.25 million in the levy, and then possibly do a subcontract for services with Green Minneapolis where we can really have some control over the outputs, as opposed to using our political capital against ourselves. So the background is just factually inaccurate. The funding for the Minneapolis Park Board has been decreasing. Prior to Mayor Frey taking office, we received about 8 cents on the dollar of every property tax dollar in Minneapolis. Now we're closer to 7 cents. So we really need to get those funds back if we're moving in a sustainable way. And this really, I like some of the goals here. I like some of the goals that were happening with the LOPIT, but at the end of the day, it was a foot in the door of privatizing our public system. And I just think that there's some better ways to get to that, and that's through advocating for the levy, not allocating earmarks for private organizations that hire staff that are doing the work that should be done by public employees. Thank you, Commissioner Musich. I'll be opposing this when it comes to the full board.
And then if you could lower your hand, I'm unable to do that as chair of the committee. So for my colleagues that have read the attachments to this, you'll note that the funding request that's going to the city out of the Sustainability Office is for $2 million to come to the Park Board, and the $250,000 to support the establishment of the carbon offset credit reporting structure that needs to get put in place so that it can be supported on an ongoing manner. This allows us to expand tree planting without having to increase the tax burden on Minneapolitans. The initial year's funding comes from federal tax dollars, and ongoing funding would come from a combination of tax dollars and carbon credits initially. And then once we get to a certain level of years behind us, we'll be able to fully fund the planting of additional trees in the city through the carbon offset credits program. I understand that not all of my colleagues are big fans of public-private partnerships, but we do need to try to find ways as elected officials to reduce the burden on taxpayers while benefiting them in a positive way. The trees are the lungs of our city. When we plant them, we're not planting them for ourselves or for our children. We're planting them for our children's children and their children to get the benefits of. And we really need to be doing more. So I saw this as a way for us to move forward in a way that did not increase the tax burden on our city residents, yet achieved a very positive outcome for them. So I would ask that you support the passing of this resolution in committee this evening. Does anyone have any additional comments? I keep losing my screen. Doesn't look like anyone has their hands raised. So Secretary Ringgold, if you could please take the roll.
Commissioner Meyr,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan,
No.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Vice Chair French,
No.
Chair Musich.
Aye.
You have 3 ayes, 2 nays.
That motion carries. And at this time, we now have a study report item. I am pulling up the Community Garden 2020 Racial Equity Analysis presentation. And it is coming to us from Becca Gross, who is our Community Gardens coordinator and a former gardener with the NPRD. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Becca.
Yeah, thanks for your time tonight, Chair Musich and Commissioners. I'm just here to share a brief update on the Park Board's Community Garden Program through a summary of our 2020 Community Garden Racial Equity Evaluation. And there should be some slides. Deputy Superintendent Ringgold, are those available?
They are. They were just 1 second. They were downloading. 1 second.
Thank you. There's a lot of pictures. Might take a second. Thanks.
Okay. I'm just trying to get it to be full screen for you here. 1 second.
Thank you.
Let me try it one more time.
I think the setting you're looking for is under display settings at the top of the screen. Let me get that view.
There you go.
Awesome, thank you. And you can advance to the next slide. So I'm going to start off with just a brief background on the program. Of course, you all know in 2018, the Park Board passed a community garden policy that for the first time allowed plot-based community gardens to be established in Minneapolis parks. In April of the following year, a temporary coordinator was hired on to start implementing the program. And by June, the first garden was installed at Franklin Steel as a demonstration garden where community members could come see the kind of garden that they could have in their neighborhood park. And the food was given out in the park and donated. By the end of the summer, 3 additional gardens were built in the park system in Loring Park, Towerside Park, and Dickman Park. And from September of 2019 to February of 2020, community members were able to apply for plots in those parks. The application process, as outlined in the community garden policy, prioritizes Minneapolis residents that don't have access to land outside the parks, who plan to grow food and have some sort of connection to the park. Since the temporary position ended, there wasn't a staff member on board that first year to score applications. So everyone that applied by the February 1st deadline was awarded a plot in the inaugural season. A permanent coordinator, that's me, was hired on in March of 2020. And in May of 2020, the first group of gardeners started tending to their plots. Next slide, please. So a critical part of the community garden policy is the yearly racial equity evaluation. Because 2020 was the first year for the program, this initial evaluation just examines the racial demographics of participants based on the voluntary question that's on the plot application, asking gardeners to identify their race or ethnicity. The goal is that participants in each garden should reflect the racial demographics of the surrounding neighborhood, and that participants in the program system-wide should reflect the racial demographics of Minneapolis residents. For future evaluations, and as this program grows and becomes more developed, efforts should be made to collect more feedback from participants, as well as information on age and income for participants. But when we look at data that was collected for 2020, we can see that while some communities were well represented amongst the gardeners, folks identifying as Hispanic or Latino and Black or African American were underrepresented in the group of gardeners in the first year. And gardeners were disproportionately white compared to citywide racial demographics. Next slide, please. So when we look at the information collected through a more site-specific lens, those disparities were lessened. The demographics at individual gardens more closely match the demographics of the neighborhoods that they're located in. As an example, we can see that the racial makeup of gardeners at Towerside does reflect the racial makeup of Prospect Park residents. Next slide, please. So staff has developed some recommendations for improving equity and diversity within the program. First off, staff should continue to promote gardens in more diverse neighborhoods in order to increase the diversity of participants system-wide and give more folks access to this program. For 2021, staff and community developed new gardens at Powderhorn, Lavelle Square, and Sumner Field. And focus for new gardens moving forward will be on parks located in or near areas of concentrated poverty and USDA food deserts. PV Park and the Sepro site are priorities for 2021 and 2022 outreach and development. Next slide, please. Staff should continue to develop targeted outreach plans for each garden that really focus on connecting with nearby residents in affordable apartments, attending more in-person events as health and safety guidelines allow, and making applications accessible to everyone. In 2020, we installed literature boxes that had paper applications in 4 different languages and a drop box where folks could leave them in the gardens just to make it really easy for park visitors to apply, regardless of their technology access. Next slide. And staff should also continue to grow partnerships with folks, both externally and internally. Growing connections with homegrown Minneapolis Food Council members, nonprofits, senior services, schools, and others doing important food justice work in Minneapolis will help the program reach more people. And also finding ways to incorporate recreation and environmental ed programs into the gardens in order to reach more park users. And in order to continually grow the community garden program through all of this meaningful outreach and community partnerships, additional staffing for the program will be critical. Next slide, please. So many of these recommendations have been implemented already. And when we take an initial look at participant demographics for 2021, we can see that there's a group of gardeners that's a lot more reflective of our diverse city. And again, efforts will be made in the future to incorporate more participant feedback and qualitative information into the evaluation for next season. Next slide. So I appreciate your time tonight. I'm happy to take any questions.
And I'm not seeing any hands. Is that because people can't find their screen? If so, just turn on your camera and wave at me. Okay, I'm not, oh, Commissioner Forney.
I just want to say that I'm real appreciative of doing this extra work, and it's so vitally important. And I appreciate it being done, and look forward to it moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. I had a question about outreach around raising awareness around this program. Are we putting up notices of the availability of plots in grocery stores, in food shelves, in places where people are procuring food to help them become aware of the opportunity to be able to grow their own food? In addition to the regular outreach that we would do via our website and social media?
Yes, thank you for that question, Chair Musich. We have done quite a bit of flyering in places like grocery stores and food shelves, and also in a lot of apartment buildings. For example, around Dickman Park, there's a lot of public housing authority sites. And this year we were able to get a flyer on the door of every resident in those buildings. So definitely working on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that outreach. As someone that spent a lot of time teaching people how to learn how to garden as a master gardener, like it's just beautiful to see that we're providing an opportunity to do some gardening on public land in ways that haven't really been explored in the past in the parks in particular. So it's an exciting time, and I thank you for all of your work on helping make that happen. I do not have any additional questions, and I still don't see any additional hands. So thank you everyone for your time this evening. And I declare the Operations and Environment Committee adjourned.
Time being 8:10 p.m. I'll call to order the planning.
Just before we go, I'm sorry, Commissioner Meyer, just before we go, if there's only the one item pending the full board, I'm wondering if there are members of the public that are maybe waiting for the full board to close out its business, if we could reconvene the full board, dispose of the business and adjourn, and then go to the committee meetings.
May I proceed, President Kogel? I don't think he's there. I'm going to proceed with
continue, Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you. Time being 11 p.m. I call to order the Planning Committee. Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Present.
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner French.
Here.
Vice Chair Forney.
Here.
Chair Meyer.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Forney.
Aye.
Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
That carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, April 7th, 2021?
So moved.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Forney.
Aye.
Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you. We have 2 action items. The first is Resolution 2021-187, a resolution approving a 5-year agreement with Metropolitan Council for Metro Transit's use of a paved area at George Todd Park as a layover / turnaround. Is there a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
And is there any discussion or commentary on this? I am not seeing any. So seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Forney.
Aye.
Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
That carries. Is there a motion for Resolution 2021-188, a resolution granting a temporary construction easement to Metropolitan Council for the D-Line Bus Rapid Transit project adjacent to George Todd Park?
So moved.
Okay. Is there any discussion or any questions on this one? Not seeing. Oh, Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, Chair Meyer. I just had a question about what sort of coordination we have with the project around placement of temporary toilet facilities associated with this. Is there a staff person on the call that can speak to that?
Yes. Can we have either Carrie or Christine speak to that?
Yes, I believe Carrie Christensen can take this question. She should be able to help you.
Thank you, Chair Meyer, Commissioner Musich. There are weekly construction coordination meetings for the D-Line, so we can inquire about the placement of facilities for folks when the time comes.
Okay.
It's a long line, so we'll make sure to raise that question when coordination for this site occurs.
Yeah, if we could just try to help them understand the importance of placing things not immediately adjacent to neighborhoods when we have large commercial nodes. We have a lot of problems right now with construction vehicles driving down residential streets to access our portable restroom facilities on the park property. So we could try to mitigate adding to that problem. That would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. And I know that there are some Metro Transit staff on the line, BRT staff. I don't know if there's anything else to add, if Shaheen is still with us.
I am.
Thanks for hanging on.
Yes, yeah, happy to be here. Carrie, as you mentioned, yes, I think this would be a good item that we can certainly bring up with our contractor to better understand. To my knowledge, at this point, I don't believe they are planning on putting portable toilets out there, but it's something that we can get a better understanding of the contractor's plans.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking into consideration disruption in neighborhoods. That's helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich and Shaheen. Are there any further questions or comments? Not seeing any more. So Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Forney.
Aye.
Chair Meyer.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
That carries and concludes our business. If there are no objections, I will declare the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Before you begin, Commissioner Forney, I'm going to go back to the full board to close out the regular meeting here. I will ask for a motion on the item that is coming up from the Recreation Committee, a motion on Resolution 2021-186. Resolution. Go ahead, Commissioner or Chair French.
I'll move that resolution authorizing Phillips Aquatic Center to share the shared use agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and Minneapolis Public Schools, which defines MPS annual use, and that MPS shall pay $150,000 per year for 2021 to 2024.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from commissioners? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the secretary to please take the roll on the resolution.
Commissioner Bourne.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Severson.
Again, I'm voting on this with the support of Council Rice counseling me through and saying that I could vote on this because I'm not benefiting from it, and my vote is aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Forney.
Aye.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
President Cogill.
Aye.
You have 9 ayes.
That carries. I will now conclude the regular meeting of the board by going through petitions and communications, starting with Commissioner Bourne.
I'll pass.
Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Cogill. I wanted to take a moment to thank Sarah Chillo and our Aquatics Division and the line cooks at Fat Lorenzo's and the folks that were eating lunch that ran up and helped lift a vehicle off a cyclist that was run over in the intersection. of Edgewater Boulevard and Cedar Avenue a few weeks ago. This intersection has been a problem for decades. Our master plan calls for coordination with our partners at the city and county to identify solutions for pedestrian, cyclist, and automobile traffic safety. I'm hopeful that at some point in the near future, some solutions will be presented for consideration. It's tragic that this is still happening to people, and I'm just very thankful that people with first responder experience were able to help rescue that person from under the car. So thank you very much, all of you, for your dedication to personal safety 2 weeks ago. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Hassan.
Pass.
Thank you, Commissioner Hassan. Commissioner Severson.
Thank you, President Cogill. I'm sad to announce this evening that a legendary place for recreation, in my earnest opinion, is one of the best places you could go in the Twin Cities, although not in Minneapolis, extremely close. The Roller Gardens is officially closing their doors after 52 years. The Roller Gardens is a place that I attended as a child growing up all the way till now. I generally go every Thursday night to get some exercise in and enjoy time with friends and families, as do many North Minneapolis residents. I bring this up because I want to talk more about the importance of recreation in our lives and the work that we should be doing to improve recreation for all of us. And I hope that this stays strong with you folks and we can get back to being innovative and finding ways to get more folks out. And I would encourage you to visit the Roller Gardens if you get a chance. They have adult nights on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and are pretty much open every other day other than Monday for children. But I would ask for you to attend just so you can see what it's like being there and how wonderful environment it is and how unfortunate we're losing it. I'd love to have a roller skating rink for the park board and the kids of Minneapolis if that opportunity ever arises. But I thought that it was important to share how we're losing a great recreational site in the Twin Cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Commissioner Meyer.
Pass.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Commissioner French.
Yeah, I just want to send a extremely huge shout out to our Street Reach team. I think it was yesterday. Was it Wednesday? There was a school walkout, and we had kids from schools from all across the metro, and maybe 300 or 400 kids, and there were no cops, and the cops, sometimes there can be friction, but our Street Reach team did an awesome job of making sure everybody stays safe. They they just did a great job. Also seeing some park directors out there as well, because they've seen some of their kids out there, just giving a hand, being supportive, and just making sure our youth have a chance to support, have a chance to express themselves and redress some of the issues they have about our society right now. And if you ever get a chance to watch some kids, youth, young adults express how they feel about things going right or wrong, it was literally watching young people grow up in front of me, and it was an amazing sight. And I'm glad it happened at a park where they felt safe to come and express their feelings. And I'm glad I got to be a part of that. I'm glad I get to sit on this board that actually makes something like that happen. And we have our youth workers, our Street Reach team, just, I can't say enough about them. And just thank you for all our park employees who made that an awesome event. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner French. Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to announce an event for next Thursday. It's the Next Generation of Parks, which is put on by the Minneapolis Parks Foundation. It's called the Sous Chefs in Indigenous food movement. It starts at 7 o'clock on next Thursday. You can register online with the Minneapolis Parks Foundation. I think it's very timely that we had the couple of conversations that we did today. First of all, about our Indigenous community. And then second of all, about community garden. This is kind of a weaving of both. And I should also tell you that at the last Next Generation event that they had, I think they had over 600 people that were part of that virtual event. Anyway, this one's very exciting. Sean Sherman and Dana Thompson, who are the co-owners of the Sous Chef, will be the feature, and they're going to be featuring or previewing Awami, which is St. Anthony Falls, and the interrelationship that they have, the planned educational and cultural experiences that the park and the pavilion and the restaurant are going to be having with that. And they're going to be talking about the restaurant's role of the broader Indigenous economic development efforts. And then lastly, that they want to also share their deeply significant relationship with the Dakota people that have with Awami. So I hope that people will tune in. It's free. Please register online, and it's a virtual experience, but I think it's very timely and appreciate the Parks Foundation putting this together. Oh, by the way, happy Earth Day to everybody tomorrow.
Thank you, Commissioner Forney. Vice President Vita.
Thank you, President Cogill. Yeah, Commissioner Forney, happy Earth Day to everyone. I hope you're gonna all get out and celebrate by cleaning up some litter, or in your neighborhood or in one of our parks. I want to echo Commissioner French's sentiments. Thanks for all the staff who have really been there for our young people and taken the time in this challenging year. This past year has been challenging in so many ways, and so many people in our city have suffered and not been able to use our park or use the resources that we provide in our city. So I just want to say thank you to all of the staff, all staff that have taken a part to make things feel a little normal as they could have in these challenging times. And I'm looking forward to working with staff and my fellow commissioners on having a great summer in our parks as best as they can be. We still have some restrictions on what we can do outdoors, but it feels like it's coming to an end sooner than later. So I'm excited about this upcoming summer and what our staff and what commissioners and what our community can do in the parks. Thank you, President Cogill.
Thank you, Vice President Vita. Thanks everybody for the meeting this evening. I know we still have one more committee here, but I appreciate every commissioner on this board and all of the work that we are grappling with right now. And I also want to say thanks to all the staff for all their work through the last few months. It's been it continues to be a challenging and transformative time in the city. The work that our staff do, being out in the community, being in our park system, the work that we do to provide spaces for people to reflect and think and gather and protest and do all of those things is critical to the health of our city. And I appreciate everybody's work to make sure that that space is still available for everybody. We can practice our rights, exercise our rights, and that we provide space that is accessible to everybody. I will now adjourn the regular meeting of the board and turn the gavel over to Chair Forney.
Thank you, President Cogill. I'd like to convene the Administration and Finance Committee to order, and if the Secretary would please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Present.
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner French.
Here.
Vice Chair Hassan. Vice Chair Hassan.
Here.
Chair, thank you. Chair Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. The Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, April 7th, 2021.
So moved.
The Secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you. We have 3 resolutions. The first one is Resolution 2021-189, resolution awarding a construction contract to Minnesota Native Landscapes, Inc. in the amount of $810,755 for the Kenilworth Channel naturalization and shoreline stabilization within the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park per bid event number MPLN 1440, pending approval by City of Minneapolis Procurement Division and Civil Rights Department, authorizing administrative use of 10% construction contingency up to $81,075.50 for necessary construction change orders that may arise with the contract, and further authorizing the transfer of $225,000 for the Regional Park Operations and Maintenance Fund.
Oh, actually, so I am sorry,
I was gonna
Chair
say,
Forney.
Old resolution.
This one,
I thought that it got moved.
this was, there were 2 of them still on the slide deck that have been pulled, so my apology. It was really good reading, though. My apology on that.
Great. Would somebody else like to move the next motion that I believe is a resolution that is on the agenda?
Yes, I can move that.
Please, thank you.
I'll move resolution 2021-191, resolution awarding a construction contract to G Urban Companies in the amount of $247,000 for the site improvements at Stewart Park project. City of Minneapolis e-supplier bid event number MPLN-0000001,454. And authorizing administrative use of a 5% construction contingency up to $12,350 for necessary construction change orders that may arise with the contract, pending approval by the City of Minneapolis Division of Purchasing and Civil Rights Department, and authorizing the use of 2021 capital investment construction contingency funds in the amount of $37,240.
Great.
Goodness, these are long.
At least you got all the zeros in there. Good for you. Anyway, would anybody like a presentation on it? Have any questions about it? I'm not seeing any hands up, I believe. Yeah, so anybody interested in information regarding this? Not seeing anything, so will the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry about that. Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Great. Would somebody like to read the next resolution? It's a bit shorter.
I'd like to move resolution 2021-192, a resolution approving the donation agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the Kinney Parent Foundation regarding playground equipment and installation at Kinney Park.
Awesome. Anybody have any interest in a presentation or have questions? I don't see any hands up. Anybody at all? Well, I would at least like to say a huge thank you to Kinney Parent Foundation. I know it's been criticized of our public-private partnerships and everything, but I can tell you, we would not get very, very far with this system and everything if we did not have the robust support of foundations such as this one. So thank you, thank you. And would the secretary please call the roll?
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
I'm sorry, it was a little bit muffled. Was that an aye?
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Great. And our last resolution, anybody want to read that or?
I can read that one. Resolution 20, I would move Resolution 2021-193, a resolution approving the Second Amendment to the lease agreement with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Twin Cities leasing Phelps Park Center building at 701 East 39th Street, allowing for donation of improvements to the gymnasium and permitting up to 250 additional hours of public access annually to the Phelps Park Center building.
Great. Any questions or wanting of a presentation? Yes, I'm seeing Commissioner Musich. I assumed you would want to.
Thank you. I don't need a presentation, but I just do want to express how overjoyed I am that we are going to have in place an agreement to have programming for the general public in this building outside of the time when the Boys and Girls Club is supporting our young people in this area. As most of you know, Phelps is very close to George Floyd Square, and this community has had a lot to deal with in the last year, and helping to provide more programming right in the community where people are living is really important. So I'm thrilled that the Boys and Girls Club was open to working with us on getting more programs there for a broader demographic age group of people.
You're here. Any other comments or concerns? I agree so much with Mr. Musich that the need is there, and grateful to Boys and Girls Club for working together collaboratively. That's what it's all about. So the secretary, please call the roll.
Vice President Vita.
Aye.
Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Aye.
Chair Forney.
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you. I declare then the Administration and Finance Committee adjourned. Thank you all. Before
Happy Earth Day, everybody.
Day, truly.